of a chance to like track an opponent or that kind of thing. But because Siege is generally close quarters or about people holding weird little angles, and you've got to try and get them off that, reaction time is really key. A real world example that was explained to me for this, which was explained to me by Zeronic actually. Do you guys know who Zeronic is?
Nope.
That's all right. He's an analyst in Europe. He's often on like the big international broadcasts for like the Invitational and Pro League finals and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So he explained to me that like the reason this became a big thing in sports psychology is back in World War II, an American soldier was kidnapped by the Germans, and he was in prison for 8 months. And when he came out, he did an interview, and they asked him like, "What did you do while you were in there? Like 8 months is pretty lonely." He said that basically he like reflected on his life, and he decided that like his biggest regret was that he didn't play golf. For whatever reason, that was his biggest regret. So while he was in there, he visualized playing golf, and like because he had a lot of time in his hands, and obviously that was all he could do. He like visualized it really vividly. So he pictured in his head like what the golf courses looked like, even as vividly as like what the grass smelt like, what it felt like as he walked along the grass, how his swing felt, how that like affected his shoulders, his hips, that kind of thing. And basically when he came out, it was the first thing he did. He's like, he got a couple of friends and he's like, we're going to go play some golf. Because that's what I've been wanting to do. Went and played golf, and he was actually really good. His mates were like, hey, how can you be so good at golf? This is your first time. And basically he put it down to the fact that he'd visualized it so vividly for so long that when it came to doing it, his brain was just like, yeah, man, I've got this. This is fine. So it's kind of like he'd practiced it for a long time. And so that led sports psychologists to really start to research this kind of thing more. And they use it in a lot of sports. So in NFL, they've started to adapt like virtual reality and augmented reality to teach or to train this kind of thing in like quarterbacks, for example. So they use like in a VR environment, they use like these visual indicators to help you visualize where receivers would be, and how defenders would react to that, so that they can then react to that quicker. And yeah, it's the same with esports. So the more you train your brain to visualize ahead of time what the possibilities of something are, the quicker it will react to that. And that's super critical in gunfights, because at the end of the day, a gunfight will come down to a difference of reaction time. As long as like two people are equally skilled, it just comes down to a difference of reaction time, basically. And on top of that, that's where like how good you are at holding angles comes into play, because that can mitigate some reaction time. We'll get into that a bit later. But in terms of virtualization, the best way to practice it is in Terrace Hunt. You guys could go into custom games as well, if you want to specifically train this together. And you can just do like 1v1s, and basically you'll just say, let's say if you go on to Consulate, you'll just say, okay, top floor, go hide somewhere. Not particularly, like not a really retarded hiding spot where it's really hard to find, but just like, you just choose somewhere upstairs to just like situate yourself. So let's say you're just over at like the CEO desk in the console bomb site. You don't have to tell them exactly where you are, but basically the other person coming in, so the attacker, they come in and they basically face check the top floor, so not using any drones, until they find them. And the idea is that you're practicing visualizing every room before you walk in and where they might be, and then eventually you'll find them and you'll try and kill them, or they'll kill you. It might feel like it's really hard at first. Sometimes when you consciously practice this, it kind of feels more clunky than normal. But it's like anything, after a while, your brain just gets more used to it. It can really help a lot. So that's visualization. Do you guys have any questions about that?
No. I don't.
Oh. Okay. Next thing is like, do you guys get tilted much in game?
Yes.
Yeah. Some more than others, but generally at some point, yes.
Yeah, like for me, like I'll have certain days where I'm just on, and then like as soon as I kind of realize I'm doing bad, and I'll just keep saying I'm doing terrible, and it's just like it'll be a wasted next 2 hours.
Yeah. So that's really common. Probably not a surprise. So tilt is bad for performance, 100%. Like, and it's the biggest and hardest issue to combat. Like, in general, like in pro teams, like people still get tilted, and it will cost teams rounds and maps. So this is something that we work on a lot. It's something that I've dedicated myself to work on a lot with my team. And like, I'm not to say that my team doesn't get tilted; they still 100% get tilted, which kind of tilts me, I guess, at the end of the day. But it can really be like a cancer. Like, it's not just like once you know someone on your team is tilted, more commonly that'll affect other people as well. So that's where like it can really fall apart. So the best way to think about tilt is, and like it's generally anything in terms of psychology. So your biggest critic is yourself, and the person that talks to you the most during the day is yourself. And everything you tell yourself is, it's a common phrase they use these days, the story you tell yourself. So what you actually said about how you see you're doing bad and you start thinking like, oh, I'm terrible. That's the story you're telling yourself right there. You're like, man, I'm bad at this game. I haven't got a kill in 2 games. Your brain is just going to start thinking like, yeah, I'm really bad. Hey, like I actually suck at this. And there's no way to get out of that tilt if that's the story you tell yourself. So it's about breaking that pattern and taking control of the story you tell yourself. So identifying, like, you might get tilted for a round and you might be like, fuck, what the fuck is happening? Like, why do I suck tonight? But that has to be like your indicator. Like, as soon as you picture that, or as soon as you feel yourself saying that, you have to be like, actually, you know what? No, I don't suck tonight. That was just a bad round. I'm gonna get this next round. And you might not, but like sometimes you will. And like as you do, you have to like reinforce yourself. It sounds weird, but like if you've had a couple of bad rounds, but then you have like a really good round, you have to kind of reinforce that and be like, yeah, I did good. That round was really good. Good job, me. Like it just helps reinforce that mental state, and it kind of protects you from tilt. So that's the other thing, is like you kind of want to prevent it. So to prevent it, it's like anytime something good happens, give yourself some praise, give other people some praise, like if they've had a good round. It all helps protect against tilt. And then as it happens, because it will still happen anyway, it's just about catching yourself and trying to break the pattern. Something that works really well is something physical. So if it's the end of a game and you're like re-queuing for ranked or whatever, sometimes it can really help just for like 30 seconds. Put your headphones down, do like a couple of push-ups or something, or some jumping jacks, and just tell yourself some positive things like, you're gonna get the next game, or I'm gonna shoot better in this next round, or something really positive. And generally it frames your mindset. So instead of you coming from that last game, sitting with really bad posture in your chair, being like, fuck this game, man, this sucks. Like, instead of that, you've like gone and listened up because you've done something physical. The other benefit of physicality is it gets the blood flowing, which means there's more oxygen in your brain. You can think clearer. You've told yourself something positive. So basically, you've completely changed your mindset, and you can go into the next game and not worry about the last one. It's always good to analyze things that have gone bad, but not negatively. So it comes back to this story you tell yourself. If you keep saying like, man, my aim sucks, then your aim is probably just gonna suck. If you keep missing gunfights, the best thing to do is to be like, kind of look at what you did, and if it came down to just the absolute gunfight, like you just didn't flick properly or something, then fine, you can just say, okay, I'm gonna try and aim a little tighter next time, or you try and tell yourself what you'll do next time, as opposed to that it sucks or whatever. Likewise, like if you're holding an angle and they just peek and kill you, you might tell yourself next time, okay, next time I hold that angle, I might sit further back. So it's all about training your brain to like phrase things in a more positive light, because what happens is your brain, it can't remember a lot of information. So it really often remembers the last thing you tell it. So if you keep saying, my aim's shit, it's just going to keep remembering that your aim is shit. But if you keep telling it things like, I'm going to aim more to the right, for example, then it'll remember when you're in a gunfight, like, aim more to the right. That's just what it'll have in, like, I guess the subconscious area of your brain. it helps it access that better. Same with like droning, for example. Like you might find you're not droning enough, so instead of thinking like your droning sucks, or like in general not even thinking about your droning, you might say, hey, I'm going to drone more next time before I push in. And then your brain will just start remembering things like drone more before pushing in. And then as you start your next attack phase, you'll get close to the building and you'll be like, oh yeah, I'm going to drone more. So you'll throw a drone down and you'll start droning stuff out. And it just kind of helps change your gameplay in a more positive way than just being negative, and just waiting for something good in the game to happen to kind of change that. It's, again, just taking control and ownership of what is happening and trying to change that yourself. It can feel really good. Like if you catch yourself in tilt and you break the pattern and then you do really well the next round, it feels so much more rewarding than just like waiting for a good round. And yeah, it benefits your teammates. And you can do it with your teammates as well. Like if you hear somebody super tilted and they're not catching themselves, you could just be like, hey bro, it's all good, man. Like just focus on this next time. Or you could even just, like, some people respond really well, just being like, hey man, you're sounding a bit tilted. Let's go, we got this. And then that might be enough for them to catch themselves and be like, oh yeah, I'm getting a bit tilted, hey. And then they can just start working on it. It all depends on, like, everybody's different, so it all depends on how they deal with that, how they deal with, like, your feedback, and how comfortable you are with each other, because sometimes if you're not comfortable with somebody, the last thing you want to hear is like, hey bro, just relax. Sometimes that's a bit worse. So it's all just about, like, knowing each other, like, what works. And you'll get used to that, like, in the heat of the moment. And yeah, biggest thing is, like, as long as you can control the story you tell yourself, you'll be a lot more protected from things like tilt. It also comes down to just, like, general, like, I guess you'd say, maturity and respect one another, because tilt, in a way, depending how you express it. So a guy that is on my team, sorry, when I first joined as coach, he used to be very vocal about anything that went wrong, like in his individual, like, engagements and stuff. So, like, let's say he'd try and pick a room and this guy was just, like, prone on the side. He'd be just like, what the fuck? Why are you there, bro? What the fuck? And he'd just be, like, super tilted. And, like, in pro, like, if you die, first thing you have to do is call out the intel of, like, where they are. Your teammates can know that. So if you're wasting, like, 5 seconds of just complaining, or, like, the other thing he used to do is just, like, smack his desk. Like, you'd hear it, and it was, like, instantly, like, I know two guys on the team used to get really tilted just by hearing that desk sound. So we worked really hard with him to, like, train that out, and he's gotten a lot better lately. And yeah, it just came down to, like, a bit of maturity and, like, respect, because he was pretty young. He's 18. And generally for younger people, like, it can be harder to control emotions. And also I find younger people, they are less understanding of how their emotions do affect others. And that's kind of what it comes down to, is like, if you're being that vocal about your tilt and frustrations, you're affecting other people. It's not just you.
Right.
Yeah. Any questions about all that stuff?
This is kind of a side question, but talking about, like, call outs and stuff like that, I think that's another thing that we can work on. And what's like a good way to call things out?
As concise as possible, basically. So do you have an example of something that's like a call out, or a way that you guys have tried to call something out that hasn't worked?
Shoot. I think we generally because we don't know, like, the maps, like, by, like, heart. So, like, we usually try to do cardinal directions.
Okay.
But how do we? I guess there's no way to do it except to memorize the rooms.
Yeah. It really comes down to map knowledge. The best way, so the way pro teams train callouts, on new maps generally, but sometimes we go over old maps if we need to refine some stuff, is basically you go into a custom game, and then you all just run around the map together, and you just create callouts as you go. We used to write them down, but these days, because we're pretty, like, down with the maps, like, additions are pretty easy. But you can write them down, and one thing we used to do is we had a channel on Discord, And I used to just go into like Paint and I just like put text box over like these maps. You can just download them from r6maps.com. And I just like write over them, and we just have like Discord channels for each map, and then each floor of each map had like all the callouts labeled.
Oh wow.
That's the really like, I guess you'd say, OG way to learn the callouts.
Right.
But yeah, generally, if it's a team environment, yeah, it's just about doing it together, because then the beauty of that is you start to create like really, I guess, customized callouts. So like a customized callout we have on Cafe, for example, is there's a spot that we just call Gay Spot, which like you might be playing with a lot of people and they'll have no idea what that is. To us, we do. And like even on Oregon, there's the spot with the gorilla poster. We used to call that Harambe. So like, you just come up with like really unique things, but like they're so easy to remember, and it help a lot. And they can be as detailed as you want. Like, it's another spot that we have super specific. Trying to think of the map. We often have like player callouts. So like other teams we play against, if they sit in like really weird spots, we'll just name that like a player callout, and that can just help. Yeah, I can't think of any other specifics at the moment, but basically like you can break it down to like areas of a room as opposed to like a full room.
Right.
And then that saves you saying things like, oh, his teller's northeast side behind the bags. Instead of that, you could just say teller's bags. Or you might have a very specific call out. You could just call it like dark spot. And then instantly somebody knows like, okay, the dark spot. And that's very specific for that corner in that room. Yeah, it can be as simple or as funny as you like. Often the funnier ones are the best ones to remember. You just, for some reason, you never forget those kinds of callouts.
Yeah.
But yeah, callouts are hard. It's one of the hardest things in the game because you have to learn the maps really well. And especially if you don't play with the same people every time, you have to learn really general callouts. And then even then, sometimes you'll say to somebody, let's say it's Border, you could say, his customs at the trays. Someone might not know what the fuck that is. And then it's like, what do you do then? At that stage, yeah, you just gotta refer to compass. Or like, because the worst thing you could do is say over there. Obviously no one knows where over there is. Or on ping sometimes works if you know they're looking towards the ping. But if ping means they have to turn and look for a ping, that often doesn't work, because then all they're doing is looking for a ping, and there might be a guy right there and they'll just die and be like, oh shit, I didn't see him. Yeah, so it gets tricky, but like if you guys do play together consistently, then you can start to like customize callouts. And that's the easiest way, 100%. Any other questions at this stage? No? Okay. Alright, we'll go into some technical stuff. Does someone wanna... Actually, I'll add one of you on Uplay. You guys will have the game open at the moment?
Yeah.
Yep. Cool. Who should I add?
Add Sundown.
Sundown?
It's just Sundown. So it's spelled.
Literally just Sundown?
Yeah.
Is your picture Blackbeard?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Who I don't actually play anymore.
Well, funny you say that actually, because there's a guy in Australia that used to play. He never really got to Pro League. He was Challenger League. He got like the biggest Blackbeard tattoo on his shoulder. And yeah, I don't think that was a very good idea.
Like he feels a nerf on every patch.
Yeah, man. Like, I don't know what it's like in America, but like in Australia, you just don't see people play Blackbeard anymore.
That's funny.
Even in like casual and ranked, like people barely play Blackbeard.
Yeah,
we
I don't
see a whole lot.
Yeah, we don't see a whole lot about
Yeah.
Blackbeard either.
Yeah. All right. All right. I'll invite you to my lobby, and if you want to get the others in, we'll just jump into a custom, and I'll run through some stuff.
Did I do that right? So how do I do this?
You can invite us.
To the game? Is that,
Yeah,
that works?
yeah. You
Okay.
just invite them, and they'll come in lobby.
Should I invite you too?
Me,
Yeah.
I'm already here. It's all good.
Oh. Lobby.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So everybody, yeah, that's everybody, right? Trying to think of the best way. Maybe if you guys all go on defense, so all go to orange. So A law if you hit space. Which team? Yes. All right. So first thing I want to go over is I guess it comes under the umbrella of positioning, but it's more to do with how to hold angles a bit better, just to set up your gunfights to be. They're 10-minute prep phases real quick, so just come straight to lobby. Oh yeah, you'll have really bad ping as well. So if you shoot like cameras, you can watch them blow up like a second later.
Down to 10 seconds. 5 seconds. Bomb location secure.
Alright. Okay, so let's come over to this is Teller's over here, this beeper's door. So let's say you're wanting to hold this door and not let somebody through this door. Let's use that as an example. There's a few different ways you could do it. Like you could sit behind this printer and like you could hold this angle, which would be pretty common, or like you could crouch and hold this angle. The thing about this is like a lot of you is exposed. So Siege is a lot to do with Peeker's advantage because of how pings work and just generally the game works because Peeker's advantage is the thing. So if you're holding like a really open angle like this, as they peek, they'll see you really quick and they can react. And therefore it reduces your reaction time. So what you want to be doing is trying to set yourself up in a way that even as they peek through, they're going to see you kind of late. So there's a few different things you could do. One is, like in this example, you could go prone at this desk and hold a really tight angle so you only see like the last edge of that door. So it means like as they come through, they'll still kind of see you in this position, but it's going to be less time for them to react because they're going to be looking left first and then they're going to scan all the way to the right, and then it should equalize your reaction time. Even better would be to come over to this black bag and basically you set yourself up. So again, you're only aiming at like the last like centimeter of that door frame here. So you want to, like, if you actually look at your screen, probably not even a centimeter, you probably want it to be like, I don't know, like 3 mil of that door exposed. And the idea is like, as they come through, all of them will be exposed and their motion is like visible for you. And you'll just generally have that little bit extra time to react. They'll still potentially see you once they've come through, but that's the thing, is they have to come through to kind of like really see you. But you'll know they're there
past the door to see you.
Yeah, so the other thing that you can do in that engagement then is you can either just hold that angle, wait for them to come through and shoot them. 9 times out of 10 that works fine. You could wait for like the motion, and as soon as you see the tiniest bit of motion, you then peek out and shoot them straight away. So therefore, you're giving yourself a chance to take Peeker's advantage away from them. That works well on defense because defenders usually have lower powered guns. So you want to think about ways to like make the gunfight unfair for the attacker, or you have to equalize the gunfight in a way because based purely on gun stats, if an attacker and a defender were to shoot at each other, the attacker would generally win 9 times out of 10 because their gun has more damage per second. So you want to be able to react quicker. So worst case scenario, you get more body shots on them before they get a chance to actually shoot at you. Where's another good example? Works really well when there's like 2 doorways. So, for example, if you're trying to hold these blue stairs, a lot of people would like maybe stand here like this, or they'll like come over in this corner and just like crouch, or like they'll do something where they're pretty exposed. Same thing, you basically want to line up so that you are only looking at like that last couple of millimeters of that doorway. So again, they have to actually come through the doorway to see you, and all you need is their motion, so you can just peek out and shoot. I did not mean to kill you, I'm sorry.
All good.
You can use this with like basically anything, so all you want to be doing is giving yourself that lineup. So again, if you come to, this is called electrical room, if you guys don't know. We actually call this pointless, because...
Makes sense. Makes sense.
So if you were to look at that window and line yourself up so you're only seeing a couple of mil of that right side of the window, if there's someone here trying to peek you, again, like they're going to peek out, not really see you that much, and you'll see them first. And so you can either just shoot or you can peek out and take peeker's advantage. So it's best to always try and think of your engagements. If you're holding an angle as a defender, always try and think about how you're setting yourself up so that they have the least likely chance to see you first, so you can react. So same deal if you come downstairs and you're trying to hold the angle to that like hallway door, you'd give yourself just a couple of mil, a little bit of sunlight, you'd say. And again, like if they cross that door, they're not likely to see you. They might pre-fire anyway because it's common, but like as long as you give yourself that extra bit of space, as soon as you see them, you can just pick out and shoot. Yeah, see, like, so it's really hard, especially, I don't know, Echo in that room, really hard to see. And again, even if they were to shoot you, their aim needs to be quite good. Like, there's really not that much of you exposed. You still have that advantage for sure. Yeah, so that's pretty much like angle holding. So you can apply that like anywhere. So again, if you're holding these stairs, instead of doing the default of like this, which allows somebody to just like wide peek and get a bit of peeker's advantage, you could hold that like little pixel angle right here, and as they come down, they might not see you, and you can just pick out and shoot.
Oh wow.
See what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, no time at all.
Yeah.
Just pop out.
Especially if they're under pressure. An under pressure mind will miss details. So if they're under pressure, let's say if it's a rush, like 15 seconds to go.
Oh wow.
And you're holding that angle, they won't see you, and you can just peek out and just kill them.
Wow.
Yeah, I see like really... a quarter, a fraction of you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
For like a split second, even if you notice it, right?
Yeah, exactly. So even if you notice it, you still have to like, it's still gonna take their brain like a little bit quicker to react. A little bit longer, sorry. So, yeah, that's like the art to angle holding basically, and this is like the foundation of positioning that we do in Pro League. So, let's say you know it's a 2v1 and you know they're coming down these main stairs. Someone would probably hold, see bro, someone would probably hold this angle, and you know they're holding this angle. But just in case, you'd probably also have another person holding an angle like here. So if for whatever reason the person that comes down the stairs was to peek and kill the person holding that pixel, this person can then use peek's advantage and peek out and kill them. Like, it would be very much impossible, I dare say, for them to quick peek this and somehow kill this guy and not, and also kill the other guy. Unless they had like 100% intel, they could potentially like pull something off. Sorry.
What's up?
But likely not. The other kind of crossfire you could hold is basically you could sit back really far, and you'd be watching. I guess you'd be watching this door, and then the other person would be sitting all the way over here, watching pretty much the same thing. So, in this scenario, the person has to be able to like kill one person, turn 180, and then kill the other person.
Right.
Like in theory, they shouldn't be able to do that without dying.
Tough.
Yeah. So this is called crossfiring, and this is also a really critical thing, especially on defense, because like defense is really can be really easy in terms of like high level competitive because the attackers are the ones that have to make the moves. If you've got your strategies down pat, and it takes the attackers a long time to really be able to approach bomb site, you can just set up lots of good crossfires, and that could be like the round done basically because the attackers then have to make a move, and it can be really difficult to beat like a team that's holding really good crossfires. Like that's a really simplistic way to explain it, but crossfires are really critical.
So in this case, in your example where you're over there by the couch, I guess, and you have one guy here, would it make more sense to hold it from here so that like one, you don't stand a chance of like hitting each other, and two, like, you know, basically, yeah, you know what I'm saying, like that he would be exposed to both at the same time as opposed to one.
I definitely get what you mean.
Yeah.
One thing that could happen with that is like if he's able to get that kill.
Yeah. Oh, he has a
theory,
little time to use cover.
Yes,
15 seconds.
exactly. So he could come back this way, or he could like tuck into this corner
Right.
and then peek out.
Right.
If he knows that position, like he might not.
5 seconds left.
But yeah, the best way to think about a crossfire is you want to minimize their chance to be able to react to both of you.
Right.
Like it has to be almost like it is instantaneous, and like it's happened in Pro League before, where like in the act of a crossfire, you actually do kill your teammate, but as long as you're actually killing the other person, if it's a 2v1 for example, it doesn't matter as much. But yeah, you kind of. Oh wait, we have to get. Oh, you are back. Cool.
Yeah, I'm back.
From my team. Yeah, the main idea is that they shouldn't be able to react to both of you at once. So it doesn't have to be like a straight line. It can be, you can set it up to be like
Secure the area. Keep the
like a 45-degree angle, so you guys are like a diamond to the guy.
10 seconds remaining.
But the best way to think about it is like
5 seconds.
that they shouldn't be able to shoot both of you. Like they can't kill you both within 2 seconds. Most people can't. Yeah, so that's kind of the idea with players. Do some more examples. Meet me in lobby again. So we'll use tellers again as an example. So tellers is a good one because often if you're defending this bomb site, they'll often want to come through this door. Best place to plant on this bomb site is over here, behind this box. So, a really common Pro League crossfire here is you'll have someone above, watching the door, and then you'll also have someone holding an angle on the door, and that's probably going to be like over here. So that way, if they peek through the door, or they come through the door, if they kill the guy on site, the guy on above can refrag. If the guy from above dies, then the guy here should be able to peek out. So like, again, they shouldn't be able to kill both of you in like, let's say they've got 10 seconds to go. It should be pretty much impossible for them to deal with that situation. Another really good crossfire in this is not reinforcing this wall. This is a really common strat in Pro League. You open the bottom of this floor up. It's gonna come out. And you'll have someone playing below, and basically late game, they'll hold it from the stairs here. So you have one person playing on site, like where I was before, and instead of above, the other person plays it from here.
So basically you're taking away the best plant spots? That's what it sounds
Yeah,
like.
you want to make the best plant spots uncomfortable, and then you also want to think about late game, like really common, like when you're defending, it'll come down to like hopefully in most situations you'll get it to like a 2v1 or like a 3v1 in your favor. And so you want to think about how you guys can hold the best possible crossfires late game, because what they're going to be wanting to do is rush in and plant. If they're rushing into plant, they're going to be going for the safest spot they can think of. This will make them second guess, so they might not end up going for there. But then again, that's delaying time. So if they've only got 10 seconds to go and they see they can't plant there, they have to quickly think of something else. They're going to freak out to be able to kill them. Even if it came down to like you versus 2 of them, if you make this plant spot unviable and they're not sure that you're holding these stairs, they might still plant there because they're like, oh, 2v1, I can get this. So then you can just time it, wait for like the last second, deny plant, and then you can just like safely retreat and just win on time. Stuff like that. Yeah, but like again, like it's really good for crossfiring. So like if they're trying to come through that door to plant, you can just hold a really comfortable angle, like from these stairs. Not directly on the door, you just come back a bit so that they don't see you when they first come through. And then someone on site will hold the crossfire as well. So again, like they shouldn't be able to kill both of you.
So that kind of entails knowing what the plants are. Like, we don't really.
Yeah,
just
so
whatever feels comfortable at the moment, you know.
Yeah, and that's the other thing is like at lower ranks in general, like even if you guys know where the good plant spots are because you guys are really well like educated on it, if you come across a team that aren't, they could just be like, yeah, I'm just gonna plant here, and you'll be like, why are they planting there? What? Like that'll happen. So sometimes you won't be able to do that. Like obviously the thing with Pro League is like you assume everybody understands like what the most efficient or safe thing is, so you can usually assume that when you make a strat. But you'll still see creative stuff.
Creative stuff.
Yeah,
I like that.
but yeah, generally that's how crossfires and like holding angles works at like pro level. You always want to make sure, in terms of crossfires, you want to make it as close to impossible for them to be able to kill 2 people at once. Like they shouldn't be able to just like shoot one and then like shoot another. Like that's they would be mechanically gifted if they were able to like do that. And I would be surprised if they were like playing at like lower elos or not playing Pro League or something. And then yeah, holding the angles, it's about, you could call it pixeling, I guess, but you want to try and think of angles that as long as you know where they're potentially coming from, they need to be reacting to you second, so to speak. If you don't know this angle, so this is a really good angle. You reinforce this wall. You can jump up on the printer, and then you sprint onto here, and then you can like hold this angle to the ATM store, like over the top of the reinforcement. You'll 100% get a kill. Like,
Oh yikes!
people don't see.
That's dirty.
Yeah. It's one of my favorite angles. Okay.
Monkers.
Sorry.
Oh man, that's ooh.
Yeah, so that's yeah, that's angle holding and cross firing. Any questions about any of that stuff at all? No?
No.
Cool. So in terms of like trying to read your opponent better, basically the best way to think about any bomb site is there's like 2 primary paths to the bomb site. So seeing as we're here, I'll explain it with tellers. So generally there's a lobby push, so people will push lobby and try open this wall, or they'll push archives and just try plant in the door. There's a couple of different ways to attack the bomb sites, but generally if you're on cams early and see where they're coming from, you should be able to identify whether it's a lobby push or an archives push. If it's archives, I mean, this is where it might blur a bit because I'm assuming that you guys are against somewhat coordinated people. It might be completely like random and it just happens that they just attack wherever. But in terms of structure, if you're attacking archives, you'd take, we call this square, so you'd take square control and you'd take CEO, so that's above. Buck is really good for this because
Op 4 has located
you can
the
just
bomb.
open up this floor. Really common spots for them to sit is here and like here. Didn't really work out very well. But you basically open up the floor, so none of them want to play in here, because like, as long as one person's above, it would be near impossible to play in here. You can then just basically, once you know this is clear, and you can hold angles above, you can basically just plant this door. Or, use a nade for this. That didn't work out very well. Or you open this wall with like a thermite, and you can come plant like here. And then you can hold it. The beauty about if you do that is you can then hold it from like inside open area. Like you can be out of this room and hold it like a good angle. But generally that's like the two ways to attack archives. Or they'll just like leg it in and, I don't know, try kill you. But if they're attacking archives, you'll see them taking above and like the back. Potentially even open area. And then if they're attacking lobby, they'll take lobby, front office, which is what's above here. And then they'll try and, like I said, if this is reinforced, they'll just try and come through here, plant, most likely. The other commonality is they would open this wall and then plant at the printer. So the read for that early is like you go on cams and you see where they spawned. That's always the first way we read what an opponent's doing. You see where they've spawned. So at pro level, like often the spawn cams die really quick, but you can still tell like if the back alley cam dies and the front parking cam dies, you know they spawn both sides. So you have to then go to the next inside cams, find out where they progress to next. So let's say back alley cam doesn't get shot, nobody's there, and they all spawn front. Like, generally you'd assume they're trying to push lobby. They're going to try and take lobby. They'll probably go on car park windows. They'll potentially come through loan office, which is the room over here. So they could come in through there. If I can hit this grenade. I'm not very good at these. There we go. This is a common angle that some people will open if they're doing this kind of push, a lobby push, because if you were to try and flank through the elevator hallway, you can just hold this off like really well. So it cuts off a flank point. So if they do attack lobby side, just be careful of this.
Down to 15 seconds.
They may or may not do it, I don't know. But yeah, so if they're doing lobby push, that's generally what they'll do. Sometimes they'll take above. I'd imagine for a lot of lower rank teams, probably not.
One friendly operator remaining. You've reached the time.
Yeah, so generally like when you read an opponent, it's about using the cameras to your advantage. It doesn't even need to be like physically seeing them. You can even just read it based on how they shoot them, or like the order they shoot them in. This is again assuming some kind of coordination and structure. If you're against a full solo queue team in ranked, like they're probably not gonna do things structured, and that's where it gets hard. Like you just have to try and use your intel to the best you can,
Secure
and
the area. Keep the bombs protected.
work together. In general, like with defense,
10
like
seconds remaining.
2 on site and 3 roaming can work pretty well
5 seconds to insertion.
for most bomb sites. And then as long as your roamers are like playing near each other, not necessarily together, like you don't have to be holding hands, but like just near each other, that's good because again, you can set up those crossfires. So like if they're trying to rush you or like trying to kill you, you can at least refrag. So refragging is something that's really like key in Pro League, and we always talk about getting the refrag. So if you're roaming up here in lounge, up in lounge by the way, which is the couch room upstairs. If you're trying to like roam up here, there's a lot of different ways they can get you. It's actually quite difficult to roam up here. It could be beneficial to bring reinforcements up, so you could at least reinforce, let's say, these walls. Because then they can't just like wallbang you. Or even these walls here. Because if they go up on parking, they can just shoot straight through these walls. Like if you really want to roam up here, you can think about placing reinforcements. But in general, like you could have one person play here, which is a pretty safe position. They can't get you from windows or parking. They have to push into meeting. And then like maybe you'll have someone else play behind this chair, holding meeting, or like behind this couch. And like what you'll want to do with your roams is you want them to drone you. You just want to shoot the drones and just like slightly reposition. You don't have to really like, oh, they droned me, and then completely run to a different room. It's just a matter of like, let's say you play at the door, and this is often the best way to think about it, is like you start as close as possible to where the first drone will come through. So let's say you start here in meeting, they drone you, you shoot the drone, you just come back to the next door. Like it's a slightly different position. If they drone you again, you can just shoot that, and you can come back and play behind this couch. So if they decide at any point to stop droning you, instead of them like peeking and thinking you're here or like at that door, you've slightly repositioned. So you're constantly making sure that intel is old. And then if they decide to just like leg it in, if there's two of you here, if you've got a good crossfire, so like somebody's here and they weren't droned out and you're here, then if one of you dies, the other can just kind of peek out and get the refrag. Could be two of them there. But that's where the site players need to be like, if you have intel, so let's say if you have a Valkyrie cam out in that hallway, that's where like the site players will be like, yeah, there's two pushing. And then you know that like, if the first person dies, you can just shoot one and just be ready to shoot the other.
So would you say on roaming, whatever you can, try to basically have the, like, it sounds like you're basically setting up angle defense, but just in a more mobile way and usually with a buddy. Is that kind of the principle? I mean, because like sometimes for us, roaming is just literally roaming. You just go out and try to get kills. You know? But I have noticed that, like some of our like best defenses were when we just happened to kind of roam together and happen to like get angles and that sort of thing. So you kind of do it as a practice. It sounds like. Yeah.
So basically, at least at high level, everything is structured to a point. Even if we wanted like play super aggressive, like we have really particular callouts. So when we switch our playstyle, so we call it going freako, and it basically means like dropping like your current strat and just playing really aggressive. But it's still together. So like, let's say there's two roamers up here. If they're doing like what I said before, how they shoot a drone and just slightly reposition and just hold their crossfires together. If you get intel from like site where they say like, oh, they've gone to main stairs, so we call this main stairs, but they're not looking, like they're not going to push you guys, then maybe this guy that's closer could just say, hey man, I'm going freako, and that means this guy has the cue to like push up and kind of follow you.
Right.
So this person's going to peek out and try and get a kill. If they die, because you told your mate you're going freako, they can be here as well, and then they can peek out and hopefully get the kill. Like the idea is that you want to be at least trading that kill, and you kind of always want to be playing your roam, at least for trades. Otherwise, you want to be delaying time as much as possible. So that's where like shooting drones and just backing off can be really effective, because let's say, as long as nobody goes up here, let's say they drone down this hallway and you shoot it, all they know is that you're in this doorway. Like you could then just come across here, and they might continue to try and drone out meeting, not realizing you're in the elevator. But your teammate could then go into meeting, keep shooting the drones, and then as they attack, they're just going to assume that you've gone into meeting, and so then you can peek out from the elevator, or like hold a really good crossfire from the elevator. So the more you delay time and deny them of like fresh intel, it should be easier to roam. Like they have to basically just face check it, and then if you've got crossfire with a teammate and then like intel, or like even just playing sound cues, like at this stage, if you've shot 3 drones, even though you don't have intel, you could basically stay super chill in this elevator and just play sound. Like you'll hear their footsteps, and then you can just peek out. And again, if you coordinate with your teammate and just say, I'm gonna peek, then they can move up, and they can also like either peek at the same time or get ready to peek after you. But yeah, you want to try and communicate everything as much as possible if you're roaming with somebody. And even on site, like if somebody's really good at calling out intel on site, they can try and like almost coordinate the two roamers. Like if you had, this will never happen, but let's say you had a Valkyrie cam right here that for whatever reason they just couldn't see. and you had 100% live intel, the person on site could literally, like, you could be here, person could be in the elevator, and the person on site could be like, okay, there's 2 coming hallway, and you could say, yeah, they're both at soda machine, just holding an angle. All right, so this is the soda machine. You want to try and make it detailed as possible, so you can call it sinks, soda machine. This room's called stock trading, so you could say 1 soda, 1 stock. So that way the people holding the angles on the room constantly know. And then as they push up, you could say, yeah, the main stairs. Not looking, you can peek. So that's something that teammates say often. So if they're not looking, let's say they're trying to shoot something here, or they're just not looking, then you know you can just peek that and get an easy kill. Or 2 of them might be trying to push, and they're trying to push meetings. The guy on site could say, 2 pushing meeting, and then you know as the elevator guy, like, oh, they're pushing meeting, they don't know I'm here, and you can peek out and like save your teammate. So that can be really strong. Like if you've got intel, echo can be good for that because you probably could get an echo drone there, and it probably won't get seen unless they have an IQ. But if you do have a chance to use live intel, whoever's on that camera can like coordinate that whole thing. Like that intel can be so powerful. And like if you guys on the roam manage to like kill 2 people, get a 5v3 with like half the round spent, so let's say there's only a minute 30 left, you could hold your position. 9 times out of 10 a pro team will rotate back. So let's say you've pre-opened this hatch, you can both drop, and then if they're pushing lobby, you won't want to go near lobby, so you'll go open area. If they're pushing archives, then you might go back to site through lobby. Alternatively, if they're pushing archives, so they're taking the square, you might decide to flank together. So you'll come through here, and then if they don't have any drones here, you can just wait. 30 seconds to go, they're gonna have to like make a rush decision. Again, panic brains will make easy mistakes and they won't look for details. So then when they're trying to push into site, you can just pick out, you should be able to get like a couple of easy kills. So that's when a roam can be really strong. If you could delay time and then actually get the picks, like in theory, you should never lose those rounds. Like as long as you played it smart, like, yeah. It's always easy to say in theory though. You have to practice it a lot to make it work, but general roam principle is to delay time.
So sometimes you'll actually not like go ahead and engage them when flanking until they actually push. You'll like set yourself up. That's what
yeah, it depends. Like if you've got live intel and they're like totally unaware of you, you might decide to engage early. But like you can think, a good way to think about it is always time. Like when you're on defense, it's always good to be super aware of time and what that means for the attackers. Because like at the end of the day, if both teams just never moved for a whole round, defense wins 100%. So attackers always have to be moving. They have to make the progressive step, and they have to either get plant down or they have to kill you. So if you've got like a minute 30 to go and you're on like a really good flank, they don't know you're there, but you just like aggressively peek out and then just die to that, like you're just giving advantage back to the players.
Right.
So it's about picking your time. Like if they don't know you're there, you could just wait. And then if they're not doing anything and people on site saying like they're taking ages, 15 seconds to go,
15 seconds left.
then you can try to peek out because you know they're going to try and push aggressive, or they're going to try plant at the doorway or something. So yeah, pick your time. And generally when you're roaming, your primary objective is to delay as much time as possible. If you get a pick, even better. If you get multiple, even better. But you definitely want to be trying to stay alive as much as possible and just like shooting as many drones as possible, because even if, let's say you waste almost 2 minutes upstairs and you shoot like 4 drones, you can assume they probably have not many drones left. So they're going to have to completely just like face check bomb site, or like they just won't be able to drone out bomb site. So drone economy is pretty important.
Keep the bombs protected.
Likewise when you attack, but like on defense, you want to be shooting as many drones as possible so they don't have intel. This game is intel based. Like you could try and face check absolutely everything if your aim is super good, but like 9 times out of 10 it probably won't work. Yeah, so if a roam can delay a lot of time, so even if it's like 5v5, you delayed 2 whole minutes, so they've only got a minute left to attack, and then you die on roam, and it's a 4v5, that's still like a pretty big win for a defense, because it gives the attackers a whole minute to actually then do something else, because all they've done is try and attack that roamer. And likewise, you've probably shot a lot of drones, so not only do they only have a minute to do something, they probably have a whole lot less intel do something with. So it's really like defender advantage. And this is why the game is generally defender-sided on most maps, because it can be really easy to like put down good delay strats, and then it just comes down to how coordinated an attack can be. Yeah. Any other questions about roaming or like defense in general?
Activating camera.
You got anything else? Stan, is your mic working? Can't hear you. So yeah, so I guess maybe like game flow wise, like when do you choose to flank, or how do you sort of just sort of just decide what to do like on roaming. Because like for me, it like I was saying, I just kind of tend to, well, this is how I tend to play, especially since I've been playing Pulse more lately. I'll like kind of go to a corner of a map just to see if I can pick up anything. It doesn't usually work. I'll like kind of roam and usually get caught with my pants down. Sometimes I'll hear like noise, and I'll actually respond properly. I'm probably too aggressive, and I probably should be just like trying to stay alive and bid in the moment. But it's just like like in other games, like I'll brilliantly flank and get like 3 kills. I mean, I guess it's not really about that, but that makes you feel so good.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah.
So it's just like what is your like flow? Like I'm gonna try to do this. I'm gonna try to do this. Like moment to moment. I know a lot of
it can be
strat based, but
yeah, it can be tricky too, because like generally in Siege, like you should be trying to act on intel as much as possible. So like ideally you would have a teammate on cameras, and so let's say you are trying to flank up the stairs, they can tell you like, oh, they've shot square cam, so they're probably around here somewhere. So in that instance, like if you're trying to play aggressive, sure, you might want to try and run down this hallway and like assume that they're inside. 9 times out of 10, there's probably somebody still on the skylight, so you just die in the hallway. But like if they're coming from that direction, you might say, okay, they're already pushing square, I'm just gonna chill. Yeah, you might say stock, and then you might go on your pulse scanner here, and you'll scan the hallway, and you can scan your windows, and then you'll know like if they try to push your windows, you can like react to that multiple different ways. If they're trying to attack your windows, you might simply go prone. If they don't know you're there, then you could get like a surprise kill. You might decide to retreat back to the back of the room, give yourself a chance to react if they open the window. If you see 2 coming down the hallway, you might pop your scanner away and sit close to the door, and then just play sound. Like as soon as you hear their footsteps near you, peek out and just shoot them. But again, like that decision making is all based on that intel from your scanner and like the camera call that your teammate gave you. So I'd say as much as possible, base your flow on intel. And if you don't have it, try and play sound cues, or set yourself up in a situation where you can, again, like give yourself the advantage if you're going to be engaged. Generally, if you're going to be aggressive, like you need intel. It's really hard to be aggressive if you don't actually know anything ahead of you. Like if you're trying to be super aggressive and they're pushing square and you're just running down here like waiting for a gunfight, like you're more likely to die before you get a pick. Maybe you get 1 pick if you're lucky, but they might trade you out. And like if that all only took 30 seconds, unless you killed like a thermite or like a really critical like operator, it's kind of not worth it. Especially if you're a pulse, for example, because your intel could be really good. So you might... Sorry, what are you gonna say?
So I guess you're better off like just kind of holding here or something, because you're denying this entire avenue to the rest of the map. At the same time, you're not putting yourself at risk.
Yeah.
Instead of just rushing out and getting killed by 2 dudes or whatever.
You want to always try and have some kind of goal. So, in terms of aggression, some teams don't deal with aggression well at all. Like some teams, if they play a bit scared or like they like to have a lot of information and they assume that teams play safe. Sometimes they don't handle aggression very well. So in that instance, like a version of smart aggression is like you might hold a weird angle in the hallway, and they might drone you out. Common play with that would be like, oh, they've drone me out, I'm going to reposition. But smart aggression there is shoot the drone, peek. Because they're not going to expect that 9 times out of 10. And they're probably going to start pushing towards the drone. They're like, oh, there's a guy here. It depends. Like, sometimes you'll read opponents that they really suck at dealing with that. And then, like, you might pick out, get a kill, and then you might bail. And then you might decide you're going to hold another angle back here. And the same thing, you could shoot a drone, and then you might reposition and, like, pre-fire again. It really depends. And, like, you'll have to try and read who you're against on how they deal with that. Otherwise, like, what I would say is your default goal should be time denial. So, again, you could start here, shoot a drone, and then just drop back. And then it really depends, like, if it's ranked, they might not try and drone you out again. They might simply just push. In which case, you want to set yourself up this nice little pixel angle we were talking about earlier. If they come down that hallway, pick out, pre-fire. And then, yeah, that's it. If you get that first kill, then what I'd say is you drop back. And then, in that instance, you want to be looking to get intel again. So, you could ask as you're dropping back, like you might get that pick. So we'll get super detailed. You get that pick, and you say, kill Jackal near janitors. And then you'll drop back. And as you're dropping back, you'll ask someone on site, is open area clear? They might go in that cam, and they might say, yeah, I don't hear anybody. So then you can run in, you know it's clear in open area, and you pull out your pulse scanner, and then you can start scanning below, and you can get a read for whether they're still trying to push upstairs or not. And then you could even try and reflank if there's nobody there. So like you could pulse scan this whole thing, and then before you walk out this door, you could say, can someone get on my square camera? Is it clear? If it's clear, then great. They might say, oh, it's shot. So then you might take an extra couple of seconds to like scan. If it's clear, then you might decide you're going to reflank. So you come back up here, and then you flank up the stairs. And you can regain top control. And then if you see another drone, you can shoot it, and you basically play that whole game again. And the whole idea is like denying them intel, slowing them down, and then basically doing that in a loop. That's generally like what I'd say is like the default goal of a roamer. Some bomb sites, it can be really tricky to like hard hold a roam. So you'd basically just shoot the first couple of drones, and then just drop back, and you're basically just trying to slowly retreat back to site. So let's say you're holding basement. It can be kind of hard to do a roam if you're holding the basement site on this map. So you'd shoot a few drones, and then basically just come straight down the stairs, maybe play the stairs, shoot the next drone you see, and then you're just going to go straight back to site.
Op 4 has located a bomb. You know what to
And then
do.
that way you've wasted maybe a minute, potentially longer. And then as Pulse, the really strong position to play here is in gold bars. So you pulse scan this corner. And basically the idea of that, most people, if they're coordinated and they're attacking this bomb site, they'll open this wall with thermite, and they'll try playing it like here. So when you're pulse scanning, you're right here. So you can tell your teammates. You can tell your teammates like if they're planting or not, or like how many are in server. I think your scanner will reach to just the edge of this wall. I think. So often there'll be like a planter there, someone here covering him, maybe someone, we call this angle long. So maybe someone at long covering as well. So you could call it out. You could say 3 server, and you could say 1 planting. And then if he's not planting, you can say off plant, off plant. So like if you're trying to just smoke him out, you can make sure you don't waste any utility. Stuff like that. Yeah, that got really detailed. Sorry, but like in terms of like, okay, cool. But yeah, in terms of roam, I'd say like your default goal is always trying to delay time as much as possible. Yeah.
Stand
Any
base
other
over.
questions?
What was that?
Oh, cool. So there.
Okay,
Good.
it's there.
Any other questions about defense stuff? Can be anything.
Yeah,
Secure
maybe
the area.
like
Keep the bombs protected.
how to hold site. I mean, I almost never anchor.
Down to 10 seconds.
Like, do you have any suggestions on anchoring? Like, sort
5
of,
seconds.
you know, like kind of flow to flow. Like, you know, are you moving
must
around?
not
Are you
bombs
looking for, you know,
being
looking at
defused by Op 4.
certain entryways and then relocating constantly, kind of what you know you showed earlier?
Yeah. So generally, the anchor player or anchor players will be the ones that get the early intel because, like, in theory, they're in the safest spots.
Right.
So you'll be the one that'll go on cams at the start of round, and then just flick through cameras to see where they spawn. So as I was saying before, that's your first point of reading an attack, is where do they spawn. So in this instance, you might see that they shoot the back alley cam, and that's the only spawn cam they shoot. So you could then safely assume they've probably all spawned in back alley. So you can tell your teammates that, so that the roamers can react if they're roaming. And basically, you just stay on cams for probably the first like 30, 40 seconds. Like, your roamers should be reacting to your callouts so that you don't get rushed. Or maybe if you've got two on site, one person can be on cams and the other person can watch like a rush angle. But generally, like, if you're on cams, you should be seeing stuff happen, and like you should know if they're getting close to you anyway. So yeah, intel gathering is like your primary objective as an anchor start, and then you want to basically just be, if you're starting to get pressured, you just want to be starting to like react to that. So if they're doing a lobby push for tellers, and you're trying to anchor, and they're trying to get this wall, let's say, you would be probably not peeking because you don't want to die early. You'd be just trying to set yourself up with the best angle you can to combat that. So you might just try and hold like a pixel in this doorway so that they don't rush the doorway. Likewise, you'll probably want the other anchor to be watching the other door, and then your roamers need to start reacting, whether they start flanking into lobby or whether the roamers start trying to come back through archives so that there's an extra person can watch the back. Stuff like that. Generally, as an anchor player, like, there's not a whole lot to do, but the most critical part of being an anchor player is giving intel to the roamers so that they're not having to, like, because the worst thing to do as a roamer is like go on cameras, see that a camera gets shot near you, get off, get ready to react, but then like they're there already or something. Like, you'll die to that really often. So you want to be getting intel from your anchor players so that you can react. And then I guess the goal for an anchor player mid-round is more so to like assist the roamers, either wasting time and getting kills, or eventually getting back to site safely. So it's like I said before, how like the roamer would call out which camera they need the defender on or your anchor on, and then they would be doing that. Like, they'd be like, yeah, your open area is clear, come through open, stuff like that. Eventually, in an ideal world, your roamers will come back to site, and then everybody just gets ready for gunfights. Like, they'll eventually get this wall open, and you know that they're going to try and plant here. So if you're an operator with a C4, you won't want to be just doing a heads up, running and try to kill. You want to be trying to think about how to use your C4. So like, if someone on your team has a shotgun, you might open a hole here late, and then you might stand behind the printer, and then you just wait for intel that they're planting, and then you throw your C4 over, kill planter, stuff like that. You want to use like your utilities like efficient as possible. So like, if you're a smoke, try and hold off until closer to the end of the round to like use your smoke grenades. It depends though. Like, some smoke players like to use them early just to deny them actually getting ground. So a good thing to do is, like, if you know a thermite's trying to thermite a wall, if you're smoke playing near the printer, you can't directly deny that, but you could actually just smoke a smoke grenade right here and it goes through the wall. And so if a thermite's trying to place the breach charge, they're gonna inhale a heap of smoke, take a lot of damage. Stuff like that. If you're Maestro, a good tip with Maestro is if you got cams on site or near site, point them in like a really difficult position, because if they get like EMP'd, the door opens on the front, so you want them to be not easy to shoot. It's generally Maestro cams are good for like late round intel. So if they get this wall open, 20 seconds to go, and they start smoking, if you've kept an evil eye, let's say here, really safe, you could quickly just go onto that, turn it towards the printer, and then you know they're planting in the smoke, and then you could say they're planting printer, and then someone can react or you react or something. But yeah, your anchor players need to play pretty safe, play for intel, and then in terms of late game, like it's kind of just you have to just read what's happening and react to it. Sometimes desperate times call for desperate measures. If you know they're trying to open that wall and maybe there's only 2 of them left, you might just go YOLO, peek out, and just like try and kill the thermite. And like even if there's like, let's say there's it's a 2v2, if you peek out and kill that thermite, but then you die, at least there's only lastly 1 entry point for the last person alive. Like if they're over near the beeper's door and you've shot the thermite before that goes off, and there's like 15 seconds to go, they're gonna just rush that door. So at least then you've done a good job for like the last person on site. They know exactly where the next person's gonna enter from, and they can set themselves up to have a good angle. Stuff like that. But yeah, that's generally the life of an anchor player. The last thing you want to be doing as an anchor player is like with half the round to go, just coming out the door trying to like take gunfights or something. Like generally not a good idea. Maybe if your roamers have died and it's like a 5v2 or something, you might say, fuck it, I'm not gonna, like, we shouldn't wait on site for this, like, let's just go. And then you might just both peek out and go for it or something. But it really depends on the situation. 9 times out of 10, an anchor will just live on site, get intel, and then just get ready for gunfights.
For defenders, defenders and their utilities, where it's a cap can or a mute, how aggressive do you want to do as far as a utility placement? Like it's like cap can, you can choose to place their utility at a more aggressive locations. Like say there's like your bomb site is on first floor, and then how wise is it to say plant his entry denials at all over the second floor?
It kind of depends on like your goal or like your overall strategy. So like if you're gonna have 3 roamers upstairs, you'd say, provided they're doing their job well, like if the roamers do their jobs well and like to delay time, you'd be better off putting them on site or near site, because basically the idea of that is the roamers delay, so then the attackers have less time. They're gonna have to rush coming to site, which means they're less likely to look for the Capcan traps at that stage. Whereas if you don't play many roamers upstairs, you could then use like the Capcans in the form of that delay. So maybe as Capcan you would roam and you would chuck them, yeah, like this door here, and then this door here, maybe like this door, and this door, and then you just play deep in CEO, and like, same thing, you just shoot drones, and then just pull back, and like, you might be kind of suiciding in this position, but if you're shooting drones, you're taking away their drone economy, that's good. You're delaying their time, that's good. And then if they're careless, and they just try to push through and shoot you, they'll friggin' walk into those Capcan traps, and even if you die, maybe 2 or 3 of them go down to like 50 HP, and like that actually helps a lot for anchor players later. So it kind of depends on what you want to do, but you can play it both ways. It just means you have to, I guess, mold the rest of your defense around that. Like if you put them all in the roam, but then have 3 roamers, like the roamers might actually get kills before they even get near the Capcan traps, and then all of a sudden your Capcan traps are probably just not going to do anything.
Right.
So that's why it's potentially better having them on site if you've got a heavy roam. And it's kind of the same with mute jammers, except maybe the opposite. So if you've got a lot of roamers, maybe you want to chuck all the mute jammers upstairs so that it's really difficult to drone out those roamers. And that way they can more effectively delay time and play around with the attackers because the attackers will have less intel.
Okay.
Yeah, and then if you've got like a heavy anchor, then yeah, you just want to mute site so that they can't see that you've got 5 people on site, for example. You want to always try and be posing some kind of off-site threat because if they know within 30 seconds to a minute that room's clear, everybody's on site, like they can just try and push site, and they've got so much time.
Okay.
5 seconds to
Yeah,
go.
so you want to always try and keep them second guessing their safety.
Okay.
The time limit has been reached.
Yeah. In terms of utility, that's generally how it works. Like, if the utility has an opportunity to delay, then you'll probably want to place it in lieu of a roamer. Otherwise, you'll have it on site. So it's like the same with Mozzie pests, for example. They work basically just like a mute jammer. People can't just recklessly drone somewhere. They have to be careful because otherwise they'll lose their drone. It's basically the same, except with Mozzie, like if they lose their drone, like they've lost their drone, they've got no chance of getting that back.
Right.
So playing a Mozzie and a mute together can be really strong. Let's say you have Mozzie mute roam upstairs on bank, and you place all your mute jammers and Mozzie pests upstairs.
5 seconds left.
Like that's a nightmare for attackers to deal with. They have to use a Thatcher to EMP to get rid of all that utility, or like somehow get the IQ to try and scan them all out. Or they'll lose like a heap of drones. In which case they have to then decide to just base check to try and get the roamers, or they push straight to site. Like,
leave now.
that can be really a good combo in terms of utility. Yeah. Any other defense questions?
Oh.
Okay. Yeah.
Multi-floor bomb sites. How do you as defenders? How do you best defend the sites?
Yeah, they're harder, obviously. You want to try and make one of them really difficult to attack. So you might load up like a lot of utility on one. So in theory, what happens there is like the attackers will drone it, and they'll identify a site has a lot of utility. So they'll be like, oh, there's not much on B, let's push B. So you're basically reading that that's what they're going to try and... That's what their read's going to be. So even though you put a lot of utility to A, they're more likely to push B, and you know that. So you're going to set yourselves up to kind of be prepared for a push towards B. And then you basically have to try and contest it as operators as opposed to using intel. Because at least then, like, you have an idea before anything happens of what they're going to do. Whereas if you kind of set both bomb sites up equally, they're going to have this, like, the attack will be a little bit uncertain on what to attack, but they could pick either. In which case, you then have to figure out how you can defend 2 floors with 5 people. Whereas if you set one bomb site up heavy, probability says they're going to attack the other bomb site because there's not much utility. But then you might dedicate 3 or 4 people to watch that instead of like 2. In which case you can better just defend it in general. That's kind of the best way to try and think about it. Also trying to set up as much verticality as possible, so opening lots of holes. Just in case. Like for example, the consulate split bomb site. You can open lots of holes above and lots of holes below. So basically it's like a 3-floor defense. Generally, it's hard to plant intellers on consulate because you can get C4'd at basically every point of that floor. And if you've got holes above, same thing. Like they're going to look at that site and they're going to be like, man, we probably cannot plant intellers. That's going to be hard. So they're going to think about trying to push below, in which case they'll probably take garage and they'll push across like cafeteria. So you can start roaming in like garage cafeteria and really resist that. So then all of a sudden they've got this decision of whether they have to try and hard push you guys as roamers in garage cafeteria, or whether they're going to try and wing it and get into tellers, but risk being C forward. In which case they're going to have to try and clear some kind of room anyway. So yeah, it can be more tricky. There's a lot more things to think about with those split bomb sites.
Okay.
But the best thing you can try and do is basically funnel your opponent into a decision that they're going to make 9 times out of 10. Because at least then you can kind of read that a lot easier.
Okay.
Stay clear of blast zone.
Whoops. Wrong button.
Any other defense questions? Oh, almost killed myself. So like a lot of the stuff I said about defense kind of explains about how you should attack as well. So in terms of attacking, you want probably 2 people droning at the start, and you want to drone rumors. Best thing you can do though with drones in prep phase, basically dedicate 1 person, find where bomb site is. Everybody else should try and keep the drones safe or pre-place them. So we call them pre-placed drones. So for example, you might come and place a drone. You want one in the lobby, let's say for here, and you want it to be kind of hidden. So you might jump it over to here. So you get it to watch the elevator hallway, the red stairs, and like that beeper's door. And so you can be on this drone at the start of the round, and if you see nobody enter lobby, you can assume lobby is like clear. So instead of droning out lobby at the start, you can just say lobby's clear. You made sure because you had that drone there the whole time. Bomb sites, or not bomb sites, maps that have lots of stairwells, best thing you can do is zone those stairs off. So I've got my drone in elevator hallway at the moment, and basically it looks towards the main stairs and open area. And you'll know, like if they're defending basement, you just sit on that drone, and if somebody comes up those stairs and goes like into open area, then you know there's a roamer and you're gonna have to drone that out. But if you see no one comes up those stairs, jump straight back on the drone and hold it, and you know there's nobody that's come up those stairs, so you can safely just walk straight through lobby and into that elevator hallway, and then someone can watch the stairs. If someone's also watching the other stairs, so the blue stairs, and same thing, you know nobody's come up, like you've basically just droned the entire top floor and middle floor because you know nobody's come up. They're on site. The most efficient way to like drone out a map and know where they are, because in this case, the 2 people that are on those or that got those drones there, they can just go back on their drones at the start. They just hold both stairwells with their drones. Everybody else can just push up. You don't have to worry about upstairs at all. And then you can start working on the hatches. And instead of spending 40 seconds to a minute droning every room upstairs to see if there's roamers, you'll spend maybe 15 seconds getting into the building, and then you're ready to do other stuff. So that's the best thing you can try and figure out with maps, is where are good places to get your drone early so that you have less drone work later. Obviously, if you see people come up the stairs, you know there's people up there, so you'll have to drone it out. But at least when you're droning it out, you know you're looking for people, as opposed to like, is there somebody here? I'm not sure. Yeah, so droning can be really important. Saving your drones for drone economy, like I was saying about denying drone economy on defense. Drone economy on attack, really important, because if you lose all your prep phase drones, it means you've only got 5 drones for the rest of that attack. Let's say you lose 4 of those trying to roam clear. That means you've only got 1 drone for sight or whatever you need it for later. Which isn't great. Like, you want to try and have as many drones up as possible as you progress through your attack. Because let's say you can roam clear effectively, you've got a minute to go, all you have to do is push sight. If you've got like 3 drones to drone out sight so you know where they are, you'll be able to just do your final stage of your attack a lot more efficiently. So yeah, biggest tip for attacks is drones. Drones. And not droning for yourself either is also pretty important, but can be tricky because it requires that coordination. General principle is like you'll drone in whoever your entry fragger is, and they'll stay like 2 meters behind the drone, maybe 3 meters behind the drone. So let's say you drone out elevator hallway, and you'll say there's one under the default near open area. Like as you call it out, they're just a couple meters behind the drone. They can just peek out and shoot because they know exactly where they are. They don't have to see it. That's where having good like detailed callouts is really good, because then all you have to say is like, yeah, they're gay spot, and you know exactly where that is, and you can just peek and shoot. Yeah, so that's the best way to try and attack, because like if you're self-droning, you'll jump a drone down that hallway, you'll see someone's under the default camera at open area, you'll get off your drone and then you'll go to peek it, and he's probably gone, or he's pushed up and you'll get surprised and killed. That happens a lot when people try to self-drone. There is a slight technique to self-drone that can work, but 9 times out of 10, if you want to be pushing aggressively, you want someone else to drone for you.
That makes sense.
What's that technique that you're talking about?
So if you're self-droning, you have to basically try and use your drone really careful. So instead of like droning here, oh no, time's gonna kill me, and jumping it straight out, you'll drone it to the corner, and you'll just kind of slowly drive it around, like around here.
5 seconds to go.
So maybe they hear a drone, but they don't see it. And like, you'll see their feet, for example, under that camera,
Time limit
and then you'll get
expired.
off cam and you'll go to peek it, because they're less likely to move if they haven't actually seen the drone.
Oh, okay.
So it's basically all about keeping your drone as hidden as possible if you're going to self-drone. Because what prompts them to move is the fact that they've seen your drone and potentially shot it.
Right.
So you have to be try and be really sneaky, and it can take a lot longer. That's the thing. You have to take the time, because if you rush it and your drone's super noisy, like they're just going to move. And as soon as your intel is old, when you peek, you're essentially just face checking. It's like, instead of you knowing exactly where someone is, you know they're around there. But they also know you're kind of around them because you droned them out. So instead of you having some kind of advantage, you've basically just got like this equal information thing again. Yeah, so self-droning can be quite tricky. On Chalet, when I play ranked by myself, for example, sometimes I'll always self-drone blue, like that blue hallway downstairs. If it's the bomb site below. So when I self-drone that, my pathing is to go through gaming, so that's flip table. You go through gaming, you can self-drone that and hold that door pretty easy and make sure nobody comes through there or up the stairs. Get into gaming, then I go on my drone again. I quickly check bar. If that's clear, then I quickly check blue hallway. If that's clear, then I just push straight down blue. And that's pretty much all you have to drone. And you've self-droned your way to site, basically. If there's somebody in blue, if you just slow peek that with your drone, and you have to be really careful when you slow peek, kind of like tap the key is the best way to do it, because it makes less noise on the drone. If you see somebody in there and you've done that properly, they won't have heard your drone, so you can quickly just run down the stairs and shoot them. That's kind of one of the only occasions I really self-drone myself. It can be really hard. Excuse me.
So in most cases, if you want to be aggressive, you do want someone else to drone for you. Okay.
Yeah, and if you do self-drone, you basically have to make a call. Like once you see somebody, you have to make a call whether you act immediately on their position because that's the freshest intel you have, or if it's at all feels a bit sketchy, you just don't push at all and you just go wait for your teammates, or you throw another drone and you try and do something else. Because if you drone, let's say in that example on Chalet, you drone someone out in blue hallway and they shoot your drone straight away, they could start pushing up the stairs, and then you start to push down the stairs, but they'll surprise you. Because at that stage, they're expecting you to push down the stairs, but you generally expect them to either stay still or to go back to site. But if they push forward, like they're giving themselves the advantage. So that's where it's really hard with like self-droning. As soon as your intel is old, you either just have to big dick it and go, or bail.
What's your opinion of shotguns?
Fun to play. On defense or attack?
Both.
Defense, obviously, they're mostly useful for like opening holes and making rotates, that kind of thing. So it's always kind of good to have some shotgun. That's where Mozzie is really great because his secondary shotgun's really good for making holes, even though it's only got 3 bullets before you have to reload. It makes holes really easily. So he can be great because his gun's good. He's got a C4. His pests are really good to use, and then he's also got a shotgun. So he actually brings like a lot of utility to defense. Obviously the SAS shotguns are also great to bring, but yeah, on defense generally try and bring one shotgun because then you can make lines of sight, holes above, holes below, rotates, that kind of thing. If you're anchoring on site and it's a real like close quarter site, shotgun can be really great because if those attackers got a rush, even if they catch you off guard, you can probably still win that gunfight. That's the good thing about shotguns. On attack though, different story. 9 times out of 10, you don't really get the luxury of those kinds of close quarter gunfights unless you're like being super rushy. Sometimes for a bit of a meme, I'll play sledge shotgun on attack, which can be pretty fun. But in terms of like competitive play, like you wouldn't do it. I've also played a lot of Habana shotgun with pistol, can be really fun. But again, like it's not really what I'd say is competitively viable, but it can be fun. This kind of brings me to like when you play casual, it can, I don't know about you guys, but like I often find casual gets weird, like boring grind vibe to it. So what I often do is like set myself little challenges, and so like part of those challenges have been like playing weird loadouts. So I've played shotgun loadouts on any attacker that's had shotguns, like Jackal primary shotgun and pistol. I played Barna shotgun, Twitch shotgun. I've played before. Like I've just experimented a lot with that in casual, and that's kind of like a good way to play casual because even if you die, like you know you're playing the biggest meme loadout, like it doesn't matter. You kind of take it a little less serious, but at the same time, you're learning new things by like you'll try and position yourself differently because you've got a shotgun. Like you know you can't just rush into a big open room and expect you're going to be able to like take a gunfight because you've got a shotgun. And even if you take your pistol, like a pistol can be really tricky to use at range. So you think more about your positioning. So it can be actually kind of good practice and good training, even though it's a bit of a meme. And likewise, if you try to be really aggressive, so sledge shotgun is a really fun one to play aggressive. Let's say Hereford base, most hated map. I freaking hate that map. Every time someone defends below, I play sledge shotgun. I rush through the front door, and then there's like the first room to the right. There's a hatch to sight. 9 times out of 10, people don't reinforce that, so I just sledge it and hot drop straight away with the shotgun out, and then you can usually catch like 2 people off guard on sight, and they're always just like, "What the fuck?" And like that can just be really fun to play, and like you'll learn little like pathings and like things you can do on different maps with that kind of loadout. Yeah, so if you want to do it, go for it. But like if you're in a ranked game or you're trying to take something more serious on attack, yeah, probably not. Yeah. There's not really many occasions where I'd say, if any, where I'd say someone will turn around and say, "Man, if we had a shotgun for that, we would have won." Like, generally not. And if you have that, you should probably just bring Buck, because then you've got his proper gun and you can use the skeleton key. Yeah.
General question, and I think I already know the answer, but I'll ask it. Is there any circumstance where you'd favor your pistol over your primary?
If you've got low ammo, probably. Like, yeah, that's probably it. Like, if you've got low ammo and you don't want to reload because it takes longer, just switch to your sidearm. The other thing which I don't know what it's like in general, but like in terms of competitive, one thing pro players do a lot is they play a lot of sound cues. One of the biggest sound cues to take a gunfight is that reload sound cue.
Right.
If you hear someone pop a mag like they're reloading, you push that straight away because you know they can't shoot basically. So a lot of pros will expel their ammo, and if they know someone's near, they'll just pull their pistol out straight away, and they get ready for a gunfight still. So that's kind of when I'd say you've got to switch to your secondary. But if you've got a full clip in your primary and a full clip in your secondary, I'd say 9 times out of 10 you should be keeping your primary out. Okay. Unless your secondary is like a shotgun, which I think is like Jackal and Gridlock, probably the only 2 attackers with secondary shotguns. Maybe if you know you're about to take like a real close quarters fight, like they're just on the other side of a door, maybe you'll take the shotgun, but yeah, 9 times out of 10 just use your primary. And if you need a reload but you know someone's near, pull your pistol out. And then if you need to reload your pistol because you missed those shots, well, you might need to go for a knife. I don't know. Depends where they are.
Okay.
Yeah. But pistols aren't very strong, so it's kind of not really worth pulling them out. General tip, if you guys decide you want to try and make Gridlock work, or someone likes playing Gridlock, her utility, while primary for flank watching, or for like holding a flank, can be really helpful, for getting plant down, because it masks the sound. So you can use it like in place of a smoke grenade, as weird as that sounds. You don't want them to know you're planting. Throw her like track stingers down, and because they're so loud, they make that huge like when they're like deploying. They won't hear you planting. So if they don't have visual of it, get your plant down 9 times out of 10. Yeah, it started to be explored a bit pro league, and I thought it was really interesting.
I have a question. So I get caught with my weapon down pretty often. So sometimes I'm trying to make a flank or make a move, based on intel. Maybe part of it's because I'm trying to self-drone. Sometimes I'm just trying to flank a push. How do you kind of gauge when to stop being so aggressive, when to go get back on sides? How safe are you generally in doing that?
It kind of depends on a few things. So like, as a defender, like I said, like the clock is something you always have to keep in mind with your decisions. So if there's still a lot of time on the clock, you might say, you might stick it out, try to be aggressive still. It depends though. Like, this is where it comes down to kind of game sense. Like
right.
you'll start to get a feel of situations, and let's say you kind of know you're surrounded, and let's say you've only delayed 30, 40 seconds. It's not the greatest time delay. So you might say, well, I'm trapped. I've only delayed 30, 40 seconds. You can have 2 decisions then. You either find the best hiding spot you can find on site, or like not on site, where you are, and you just hide, and they have to punch you until you die, basically. Maybe that would waste more time. Alternatively, you make the decision you're going to be like a rat backed in the corner, and you play it extra aggressive. So as soon as you see that next drone, for example, you might be like, this is my chance, and you just peek out and you try and get a kill, because that might be when they expect it.
What I mean is more like running, versus like ADS and round.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, that timing, like like sometimes it works out really great, other times it's like I overpeaked or I whatever,
Yeah.
How do you sort of gauge that? Do you tend to be more conservative if you don't quite know? And I'm sure that depends on the situation, whether you're attacking or defending, the time clock, all that stuff. But is there a sense or?
Yeah, it does kind of come to the game sense.
Okay.
Intel as well.
Sure,
like if you know you're getting close to somebody, I'd say like you've got to stop sprinting and ADS straight away. Because you never want to be trying caught in sprint animation, because if you don't have angled grip on, it'll take ages to get your gun up.
Story of my life.
Yeah. Otherwise, if you don't know where they are, but you think they might be close, yeah, get your gun out and basically try and get into like a good habit of, if there's a corner coming up, don't sprint. Get your gun out, ADS as you go around, and then kind of advance. And then like any time that you think, it kind of comes down to that virtualization thing I was talking about. Anytime you think there might be a chance there could be an engagement from some angle, you want to not be sprinting and ADS.
Right.
And yeah, you'll spend like I'd say in theory you should be spending most like 80% of your round ADS, because especially when you're like, if you're in a roam, sometimes attackers could come from so many different directions and you kind of need to be ready. Yeah, and if you're an attacker and you're clearing rooms, yeah, you want to be entering every room ADS basically.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, but if you find you are caught in sprint really often, you should probably just sprint less.
Like I hear the angle sight is actually not that popular in Pro League. Is that true? Because people kind of know like enough to not need to use it.
Yeah, like generally you're ADS often enough where you won't need that advantage of the angled grip.
Right.
And then also it's, if you've got the vertical grip on, excuse me, if you've got the vertical grip on, it's a lot easier to control recoil. So you're giving yourself that recoil advantage.
Right. So that's more important generally because people have the intel, so they don't need they're not caught off guard that often.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Like sometimes some pros will have like these really aggressive roam strategies, and that just comes down to the fact that those roam players just have like this really good game sense for like that really balls deep lack of intel roam. Some players really thrive off that, and they might play an angled grip because they need that extra reaction time. But yeah, 9 times out of 10, most pros will know when they're about to be in engagement. They'll already be ADS. Kind of not worth it. Yeah. Any other, I guess, questions in general?
Do you have any, Allison?
I think I've asked all the ones I wanted to ask, and you already asked a question about how to defend. So it's
Stan might, but his mic's not working.
his computer's not cooperating.
Yeah.
Damn.
One of all days. Like, do you have any like drills or mechanical things you have for us to think about, work on, or to evaluate like what we're doing, like visually?
Yeah. So there's in terms of identifying things that are going wrong, a good thing you can do both individually and as a team is you can have a notebook down on your desk, and basically every time you die, you can write down what happened. So let's say you overpeaked. So you could say round 1 overpeaked, round 2 no intel. Like you can write down what you think caused you to die, and then you'll start to see like a theme on what's happening. And once you start to see what's common, so let's say you start dying a lot to no intel, you can then set up a page and you write your common reasons for dying. So let's say it's overpeaking, no intel, something like that. And you can keep a tally next to them for every time it happens. And so you're basically keeping tabs on how often it's happening. You just try and fix it, and then hopefully over time you'll be putting less tallies next to those things, and you can see that like you've actually improved on it. It's a really good way to see how you're progressing.
Okay.
You can do that as a team as well.
So what is overpeaking, or what does that look like? Because I think I'm doing it. Sometimes I'm aggressive. I'm trying to go around corners to try to surprise the other guy, but he comes out and my reticle is like now behind where he's at, and I have to retrack. Is that like an instance of overpeaking, or is just like I'm not anticipating properly?
It's kind of like peeking when you shouldn't even be like at all. So like let's say you're holding an angle at a door and they're not at the door yet, but you just peek out and start shooting. Like I would say that's overpeaking because you're giving away your position, and also like again because attackers have overpowered guns compared to defenders, you want them to be coming to you. On attack, I don't say you could really like. It's harder to over peek on attack, but let's say you know where a defender is and he's got like a really strong position.
Mm-hmm.
If you just try peek that and you die, like that's on you. You knew his position was strong. You peeked it, you died. Like that's kind of over peeking.
Okay.
Over peeking to me means that you should have strategically thought more about what you were doing before you tried to engage. Yeah.
Like sort of like offense. What's the flow? Maybe you already talked about it earlier. Maybe I missed it. But like obviously you're droning. Like moving from room to room. Like are you? I don't know. Like do you go in pairs? Do you kind of? I mean, I guess you probably have established strats.
Yeah. So generally, how a structured attack would go is you get prep phase intel. So you find out where the bomb site is, and then you set up your pre-placed drones, so you can, where they've rotated if they've come up and down those stairs. That's the best way to save some time on the drone phase. And then as you start the action phase at the start of the round, probably 2 people will drone, 3 people enter the building. And ideally what happens is you'll know if there's roamers. So if there's roamers, the droners will start droning out those roamers, and the other 3 can start doing a roam clear, we call it.
Mm-hmm.
If there's no roamers, then the 3 that aren't droning will push straight into the building and take the control that you already have. And then basically, once you've roam cleared or can control what you have, you will start working. We call it working bomb site. So that's where if you need to put vertical holes, or opening holes in the floor, to just start displacing them on site, you do that. Using breach charges, opening line of sight, anything that makes it uncomfortable for the anchor players to be where they are. That's called working the site. You want to kind of try and do that between minutes 2 and like around 1 minute, quicker if possible. You basically want to allow yourself anywhere between a minute 20 to a minute to then do the last phase, which is called site execute, or like your attack execute. And that's basically opening any final wall you need to open in order to be able to like plant the bomb where you want to plant. Setting up any other like particular crossfires you need to have, or like angles you need to hold in order to get plant down. Basically anything that will enable you to get that plant down. So Bank, for example, on that basement attack, if they're holding CCTV lockers, what happens at pro level is people will open that side server wall that faces the blue stairs. They try to do that with about a minute to go, and they have to try and bait out all the denial utility. So like the smoke grenades, C4s, you're basically just trying to pretend you're planting and then you back away. And you're just trying to get them to waste the utility. So then in that last 15 seconds, you can start to stick your plant. And then by that stage, you should hopefully have your other attackers holding good angles so that once the defenders have to try and rush to take the gunfight, you can just kill them so you get the plant down. But yeah, generally that's how attacks will flow. So like prep phase, roam clear, work the site, execute. How you break it.
Okay.
And if you guys want to practice structured attacks, the best way to do it is in custom games like we were in before, and just step through each phase. So like you can talk about what you'll want to drone in prep phase. You'll talk about how you want to roam clear. So talk about different ways that they could hold a roam. Like they might have, if we use Bank for an example, they might have people on that top floor. So you talk about if there's roamers on top floor, how you'd approach it. If they have roamers like in open area, cafeteria, again, how would you approach that? You just step through it. So that basically as you achieve each goal in an attack, so let's say you achieve a roam clear, everyone can instantly just look and be like, okay, we've roam cleared. Now we need to start working the site. And because you've gone through it, everybody understands what working the site means. So that's opening the hatches, opening walls, that kind of thing. And then once you've worked the site and everyone sees that like the hatches are open, walls open, that kind of thing, you can be like, oh cool, now we're ready for execute. Time, minute 10. Oh good, we're on track for time. You might look at the time and see 50 seconds. You'll know you're a bit behind. So then you start thinking like, do we try and do our standard execute, or do we try and do something a bit different? So going back to that basement bank attack, for example, if you're really low on time for that execute and still got heaps of utility like smoke and C4s and stuff, instead of just everybody being in server kind of holding angles, you might have someone go flank garage and try get like a couple of picks in red hallway or like in garage if there's someone playing there. Or you might even, as you're trying to get plant down, you might drop 2 people down the hatch that goes into red hallway, and then they just rush the defenders, so it creates a bit of chaos. When you get low on time, that's when you have to start thinking a little more kind of creative, I guess, and that just comes down to practice and experience and like what will work when there's less time, kind of thing. But if you're gonna actually prepare structured attacks, you always kind of prepare as if everything works properly, this is what we do. And then you adapt to any variable that comes up otherwise.
Okay.
So, as attackers, do you want to open up all the openings, or it? I mean, of course, it's based on intel and circumstances, right? And so, I'm sure there's instances where you would create an opening and you realize that you have an overwhelming disadvantage for whatever reason, and then there's other time you create openings and you find out that, oh, okay, there's 2 or 3 people on site, they're very well situated. How do you weigh the different the decision of, do I go open up as many openings as I can so that we have the options when we get to the later phase of the round, or do we make that rush based on the intel that we have?
Yeah, it comes down to, I guess, a bit of map knowledge and experience as well. So, sticking with that bank example, if they've reinforced like all the hatches, so including server hatch, you might decide to not open server hatch, because if they try and flank you, they don't actually have to come down the stairs. They can shoot you from the hatch.
Drop right in, yep, or stay on top.
Yeah, so you might think about that and say, if we're not going to actually have anybody actually hold flank, that will come back to bite you if you open that hatch. Then again, you might decide to open the hatch, because likewise, if you plant in that doorway, you can hold it from the hatch, opposed to being in server. So, like, you have to kind of just think about how it could be used against you, and decide whether you want it open or not. There's no real like clear-cut black and white way to say you don't want this open or you do want this open. Some walls, so yeah, like, you'll know you need it open, but like, it's just a matter of knowing the map and having experience to see what works and what doesn't, and then later you can be like, oh no, we opened this last time and it really fucked us, so this time let's not open it. Yeah, unfortunately there's no quick way to learn that kind of stuff. Everything will have like a pro and a con. It's experimenting a bit, learning what happens. Some things will work against a certain team and some things won't. Like with that example I was talking about, the server hatch, like, you might know that the team you're against don't roam, like, or won't try flank. So in which case you might just open the hatch because it might be really safe. But then if you're against a team that's really aggressive and they like to constantly like re-roam and flank and stuff, then you'll start to be more wary of that. You'll dedicate either more people to flank watch, and you won't open things like server hatch. So yeah, there's a lot of variables to it. Sorry, it's not really a simple answer.
No, and I wasn't expecting it's a simple answer, because it's just so much is based on circumstances and like you mentioned, like map knowledge, the people you're playing against. So it makes sense. I do appreciate the answers. So.
Oh, that's right.
So generally, how do you actually like coach your teams? Like, are you watching behind, like over their shoulder? Are you looking at gameplay footage and giving them commentary? And like, I'm just wondering how much would that apply to something that we can use?
Yeah, so where we're at the moment is basically every scrim they have, so practice matches. I will one of the players streams their point of view to me, and so I'll watch that point of view. And he's the main shot caller, so the reason I get him to stream his point of view is basically I want to know what he sees, and I'm in team comms as well, so I know what everybody's saying. And I basically want to understand how the decisions are being made and how they're trying to execute that. And I'll basically write notes for every scrim we have. And then once the night of practice is over, so let's say if we do 2 scrims, 3 maps for each scrim, that's 6 maps. I'll have heaps of notes, and then like at the end, we'll just quickly touch on things. And like if there was any big blaring issues, that's what we focus on. If there's anything they did really well, then I'll make sure I bring that up as well, so they know to like replicate that. But that's basically our general troubleshooting method, so to speak. And then when it comes to an official match, so like a Pro League match, obviously we have the stream, but the official stream is on delay, so it's a round behind. So I sit in team comms live with them, so I know what's happening as it happens. I just kind of coach them, I guess, for mindset in that case, because I can't see what's happening live. So like I wait and see on the stream if there's like a big issue that I see visually, and I'll like remind them of that later. So let's say if they're attacking a bomb site and they make a critical error, next time they come back to attacking that bomb site, I'll say to them, hey, next time, or last time you attacked this, you did this wrong. Like this time, let's try do this instead. And they'll be like, okay, yeah, we'll do that. We'll need a buck for that. In which case they can quickly set up and adapt to it. But otherwise, in terms of comms, like I sit in comms, and if someone starts to get a bit tilted, I just try and interject and break that pattern so they don't get tilted too quick. If I hear an issue with comms that led to the round fuck up, then I'll tell them straight at the end of the round, like, oh, you shouldn't have called that. Like, that really fucked you guys. It's kind of hard to explain. So that's kind of like the active part of my coaching with the team. The other part, which happens in the background, is I work with our analyst. So we have an analyst, and we'll watch opponent matches together, and we'll write down lots of data on like what operators they pick, what bomb sites they pick, win percentages on bomb sites, what operators they had when they won that bomb site, any particular like key notes on what made their like defense really good or like what made their attack really good, so that we can try and build counters to it before we actually come into the match. And then generally, if there are tricky opponents, so for the Fnatic match, for example, we spent 2 nights doing just pure strat sessions, changing things specific to counter things that Fnatic do. Otherwise, if we feel really confident about the read we have on their opponents, then we kind of just play our default stuff but adapt in game. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Like, obviously, as a coach, when you first come to a team, there's usually a lot more to do. So, like, when I first joined Oddity, there was quite a bit to do. Like, I worked with them a lot. I changed the way we did a lot of things. Took us a while to adapt to it. But now I've been with the team 6 months. There's kind of a lot less, I guess, active stuff for me to do. Like, I still sit in scrims, I sit in comms, but, like, some nights, if they're playing really well, like, I hardly have to say anything. If they're playing really well, they self-analyze well, they adapt well, they call everything themselves, which I encourage a lot, because if they figure everything out themselves, it helps us at LAN tournaments, because at LAN tournaments, the coach can only speak during a tactical timeout, which is 1 per map, or in between maps. So like, if I'm the one helping them too much online, when it comes to offline, like at LAN tournaments, like they'll probably fall apart. Yeah, I've really tried to focus on them self-assessing, self-analyzing, adapting to their opponents, that kind of thing. And I help guide them when we practice. But yeah, that's kind of it.
You mentioned visualization. So how does that? What does that look like outside of playing like thousands of hours? Is there is there something that like you should be actively looking at or thinking about how you're playing, replaying that in your head or something?
Yeah, thinking about what you did and what you could have done, and visualizing that, it can be really helpful to like remember like next time what to do.
Okay.
So it's always good to reflect on how you're playing, and like you have to try and also be careful not to analyze only things that are going wrong, but like also things that are going well. So it's like I said before, if the team do things really good, I write that as like a big note on my notes, and I make sure that I bring that up, because a mistake a lot of people will do is they focus so much on improving that something they used to be good at will start falling by the wayside. It can be the same with like a map in general. Like you might feel really comfortable on border, but you'll start practicing so many other maps that all of a sudden border just sucks. And you'll be like, man, why does my border suck all of a sudden? And it's just because like you haven't paid attention to it. So it's kind of the same. Like you might be really good at, this is not a good example, but let's say you're really good at self-droning, and then you keep thinking that there's an issue with droning, so you start to get someone else to drone for you, and things start going really bad, and then you try self-drone again, but then you're bad at it, and you're like, what? I used to be good at this. What's going on? And it's kind of because like you didn't realize you were good at it, if you know what I mean.
Right.
Yeah, so doing that is always good. In terms of supplementing like thousands of hours of game experience, watching pro games can actually be really helpful, because it is like, it's a method of like visualizing things.
Right.
So watching pro games, see how pros do things can really help.
Because I mean, I've read people like saying, well, that helps, but to an extent, some people try to emulate the pros like too much when
Yes.
they need to kind of, fall to their strengths or just their personality or how they play. So like, is it kind of like not being slavish to imitating what's happening, but understanding what's happening so you can kind of absorb it? Is that the idea?
Yeah, that's 100% it. If you try and like totally imitate like a pro or pros and not actually understand why the pro is doing something, yeah, it'll probably not work out. Or maybe it will, but like not always. Yeah, when you watch a program, you want to try and be understanding why they're doing what they're doing, what purpose it has, because 9 times out of 10, like stuff that pro teams do has a purpose. And sometimes it's probably different for viewers. Actually, I'm sure it's different for viewers, but like as someone involved in pro scene, when a caster will say something like, I'm not sure what he was trying to do, kind of like, oh man, like there was a purpose for that. Like people don't stuff. But yeah, that's the best way to do it, is like you analyze it to understand what is happening. Like if they've got 2 people holding a room and they're in a certain position, looking at like why they're holding that position. So now that like we've had this massive chat about angles and crossfires, if you go watch a pro game now and you see 2 people set up in a room,
Right.
you might instantly see like, oh, I see what they're doing. They're holding the crossfire on this angle.
Right.
Now that you understand that, like you're more likely to be able to replicate that in game. And it's the same if you see why they're attacking a room a certain way and you understand that, then like when you come to doing it yourself, it's a lot easier for you to set up. Whereas like if you just notice, oh, the thermite goes there, cool, I'm just gonna thermite there next time.
Right.
Like there might be 3 other things involved in that step or that process that you didn't understand.
Right. It's like cargo cold thermite.
Yeah. So watching pro games can help a lot.
Cool.
So which one of you actually ordered the session, by the way? 'Cause your Discord names are different.
It's school.
Yeah, it's me.
Oh, it is cool. Okay, cool.
Oh hey, you're back.
Oh, hey, your mic's working.
Hey.
Did you have any other questions, Stan?
No. I've been listening, so I don't have
Awesome.
much questions. Yeah.
Cool.
I do have one.
Yeah.
I'm under the assumption that the ACOG needs to be learned. I'm very reluctant to learn it, but I'm under the assumption that ACOG is probably on the site to use if it's available.
It depends actually. So I think if you're playing more support like operators, so like Thermite, Thatcher, an operator that's less likely to be in an initial engagement, yeah, ACOG can be good. You're more likely to be holding long angles. But if you're playing like Ash or Zofia or like an operator that's likely to be in the thick of it pretty quick, I actually think it's much better to play reflex or holographs, because when you're in close quarters, if you've got a one-time scope, you get a little less like lost in the sauce, so to speak. Whereas if you have an ACOG and you're in real close and you try and aim at one person, like you instantly lose perspective of everything else around you. Sometimes if you're entry fragging, you might need to quickly flick to a second person, and if you have an ACOG, that can be really hard. So I'm of the opinion that like if you're in an aggressive role, playing a one-time scope is much better. I personally play reflex on everything, except like Doc and Rook. I still play ACOG, but besides that, like I play reflex everything. That's just what I'm used to, and I'm really comfortable with that. And it's very, very rare that I sit there and think, man, if I only had an ACOG on, I would have won that gunfight. Doesn't really happen. It used to happen more so that I would have an ACOG on, and I'd say, fuck, I really lost what I was doing there. If I just had a reflex, I would have seen him. Like, yeah, it kind of depends on your playstyle, I'd say more so. And then sometimes the map as well. Some maps have a lot of long angles and open hallways. You might decide to play ACOGs on that, but yeah, it just depends. The other thing with that though is like if you switch sites constantly, sometimes that can really affect your aim. Right. Some people work really well when they just have one site and they just play that constantly. Yeah, like one of my teammates, he just played holos on everything. He tried to switch to ACOG recently and he straight back within like 2 days. Like it just wasn't for him, and like that's fine. It really does come down to like a personal preference thing.
Do you have thoughts about like you know how you can set your mouse setting to have it be less sensitive when you're ADSing? Like I know some people like to get it to that 1-to-1 ratio. Like, do you personally have a preference or folks that you know in that scene?
Most pros do try and do like the whole 1-to-1. So if you haven't gone and messed with the multiplier in the game settings file, if you haven't messed with that, then yeah, you set your ADS to, I think it's like 83.
Yeah, and that applies only for the 1x sites, right? Because I think the ACOG uses some other weird multiplier.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. So if you're playing like let's say all reflex and you want it 1-to-1 with your horizontal vertical, you set your ADS to 83. And then, yeah, like it does have advantages mechanically because it's only one set of like movements that your brain has to remember. Right. Because it's no different then. Which I kind of get. I personally don't do that. Okay. But I know a lot of pros that do that set.
Yeah, go on.
Oh, I was gonna say I personally have my ADS a bit lower. I think. Okay. Mine's on 48.
Oh, okay.
I just, for whatever reason, I just prefer that. I don't even know why.
Right, yeah. So like when they say 1-to-1, is that like the same movement for the same distance in inches from, you know, like so you have a guy and he's like, you know, right, I don't know if that makes any sense. Is it the same movement to move the same displacement on screen, or is it the same movement for the same like angle? Maybe that's the same thing. I don't know.
I get what you're trying to say. It's basically like if you un-ADS and you were trying to say 45 degrees to the right.
Yes.
It'll be the same if you were ADS. Like that's what it means.
Okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily mean that. I thought it maybe meant that like you see a target that's like 2 inches on your screen and next to it the same movement would be the same.
Yeah. It's basically like if you think about it in actual measurement, your mouse pad, if it takes 10 centimeters for you to do a 360 on ADS, if you have your ADS at 83, it takes 10 centimeters to do a 360 ADS. Yeah.
I see.
Yeah, so it means it's exactly the same, basically. It's like turning off ADS multiplier.
Right. Does anybody ever do it so that like it's displacement? You know what I mean? Like is that even, I don't even know if that's even possible. Where it's like if I see a target, you know, it's always going to be, if I move my mouse 1 inch, it's always going to move my reticle 2 inches on screen.
Good question. I guess like if you upped your sensitivity on horizontal vertical, but like generally like you want to be trying to get your sensitivity lower,
right?
General practice, because more accurate movements, and the more micro muscles you engage in your aim, the easier it is for your brain to remember the movements. Like if you're a real heavy wrist player and you play really high sensitivity, because those movements are so fine, it's actually really difficult for your brain to remember exactly like those movements.
Right.
That's why a lot of pros play a lot lower like DPI, because it means, especially ARM players, like you'll find that some of the best aimers in the world are like solid ARM players. Like they play 400 DPI and their sensitivity is like real low in game. And if you watch them, they move their arm heaps. And it's because like your brain remembers that a lot easier because you're activating bigger muscle groups.
Right.
So it's a lot easier to reproduce, basically. It's not to say that like you can't be good with like high sense as well. There's still some pros, especially Latin America, the Brazilian players. A lot of them play like higher sensitivities. Their aim is still nuts. Like you can still do it. It's just generally like, or science says that it's easier if you're activating more and bigger muscle groups.
Right. And then there's less margin of error if you're moving, 2 feet to move a couple pixels and the other way around, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But you obviously have to have a big desk as well. Like if you got a small desk and a small mouse pad, there's no chance.
Yeah, I don't think it's something I can get used to.
Yeah, it takes a while. I used to play when I first started. I think I was on like 1600 DPI.
Oh wow.
So I was like pretty high sense, and then it's just slowly gone down. I'm on 600 these days, and I found that's my best balance. I tried 400, it was just too slow.
Yeah.
Like my arm, I just couldn't move my arm quick enough. Not worth it. Any other questions, guys?
Any tips for playing shield operators?
Or against
against? Well, the best way to play against a shield operator is to work with a teammate and basically try and bait them in.
Okay.
So a blitz player will always try and push you, so you get their attention, run away, have a teammate hold an angle, and then basically you just get them to run into your teammate so that you just shoot them. Montaigne's a bit trickier, but same principle. You basically want to try and bait him into a position where 2 people can shoot at him because he can't block that as much. In terms of playing a shield operator, I don't personally play shield operators much. Monty is really good if you don't like droning much, like as a team, that is, because basically you can just drone a small area, and then Montaigne can just push up to a doorway and just look through, and like they just look at the whole room and be like, yeah, it's clear, guys, and then you can just move forward. Like, Montaigne's really good for that. Also some trickier like areas to take. So a lot of pros, if they're trying to take, let's say, the catwalk in Clubhouse in the garage, they often push a Montaigne up there because he can just walk up sideways, no one can shoot him, and he can just push. If there's someone playing out in that corner, he can just push up to them and kind of like push them out, and then someone can hold an angle from the doorway and just like shoot them as they try to move. So Montaigne can be really good for like pushing people out of tricky areas, as well as live intel. Blitz, there's 2 ways you can play Blitz. You can play him similar to Montaigne, but not as effective. Obviously, shield's big. Or you play him like you're a freaking Aprilist from the zoo, and you just freaking like rush at everybody and flash them and bash them and like, yeah. I don't know. Blitz is so annoying to play against.
Yeah.
Yes.
You have to basically just, if you think about the times that you got absolutely dominated by a Blitz, that's the way to play it. Like, that's exactly how you have to play it. You just get it up in people's faces,
And just go
flash
ham.
them. Yeah, just
I
go
mean,
nuts.
basically, when I see Blitz, I run. I mean, is that pretty much the right thing? You know? Like,
Pretty
don't
much.
Don't let him clear his steps. Hopefully, somebody will save your ass.
Yeah, you have to be careful turning your back as well,
Right.
because he might just decide to ADS on you and just shoot. But
Right.
yeah, you want to try and keep your distance. If you are like 100% by yourself and there's no way a teammate can help you, you have to again play the bait game. But basically, you bait them towards a doorway that you can hide next to. So like what they think is you've entered that room and you're trying to run away, but actually you run into the room and you stay right near the door. So then as soon as they close the gap, you can surprise them, quickly melee their shield away, and then you got to try and kill them there. That's what I find is best, because if you run at them to melee them, they'll just flash you, and that's not going to work. If you try and hold too much distance without shooting, they'll try and like ADS on you, and that can sometimes not work either. So yeah, I find the best way is to just bait them into a situation where you can control the engagement, I guess. And then hopefully, if you can knock their shield away before they flash, should be able to kill them. But yeah, it's hard. Definitely the easiest way is having a teammate help, because then you can always kind of set up a good crossfire, and he can't deal with you both.
Thank you.
Any thoughts on vertical play? Because I play Buck a fair amount, and I am not good at vertical play. I've gotten maybe a kill, like, once or twice. But I mean, maybe that's not the point, because I know sometimes it just makes other team uncomfortable having the ceiling with the floor blown out. But do you have any thoughts on that?
It's quite powerful for a lot of sites to have that vertical play happening. Yeah, it can be really annoying. You where you open a hole and there's a guy below it, you just get domed. That'll happen. Or you'll start opening holes and there's a pulse below you and you'll get C4'd. That happened too. The best thing you can try and do if that is happening a lot and you're worried about it is just get someone to drone below you first, maybe. Or at least know what operators they've got, because then you might know, there's no C4s, so I don't have to worry about that. And then you can kind of just go for it. With Buck, the best thing to do is if you think you're going to be opening a line of holes, say it's north to south on a floor, start north and back towards the south, so you're always constantly walking away from your holes.
Okay.
That's the best way to try and open up a whole lot of holes at once. You're not exposing yourself.
Shoot away from you, then towards you, or the other way around?
So if you think about you're facing north. Okay. Oh, are we still in this custom? Oh, yeah.
Oh, I got kicked out.
Yeah. If you think about you're facing north, walk backwards as you shoot the floor in front of you. You know what I mean? And so you're basically opening the line of holes in front of you, but you're walking backwards, which means you're constantly not exposing yourself.
Right.
You're not walking over your holes, kind of thing.
Right. Oh, okay.
Because a lot of people will aim in front of them and then shoot holes, but they'll walk forward as they make them. The defenders can always see your feet.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to try and walk backwards. Other than that, the best principle is if you're opening a lot of holes in the floor, open all your holes and then come back to aim at them. Because if you open 2 holes and try and aim down them, obviously you're just going to be looking through those holes, right? But if you just open 16 holes in the floor and then you come back to aim, it's harder for them to predict exactly where you're going to be looking. You're more likely to get a pick that way.
Okay.
Speaking of Sledge.
Sorry, did you have anything more down?
I was going to say, just same with Sledge. Open a bunch of holes and then peek. Don't open one hole and peek straight away. You'll probably die.
Speaking of holes, so one thing that I'm totally not doing is murder holes. And so is there kind of a thing because I mean obviously if you have a strat, and you know your angles and you know the map really well, you can set up murder holes, for days. But is there a thing that you think of hey, I'm just gonna do a hole right here because of the situation, kind of how you showed us the crossfire peak situation. You can use that anywhere, right? Is there anything like that where you can put that in play very quickly?
Not really. It kind of comes down to the map knowledge, I guess.
Right.
But also in terms of murder holes, don't ever really rely on those hit holes where you just melee one hole in the wall.
Okay.
It might work against some people, at least at higher level. That's usually a big flag that there's probably someone right behind that hole, so they just shoot it. Good way to die. What you can do if you want to set up sneaky holes like that is you shoot a little triangle of 2 or 3 bullets. If you've got time, because if they're close and you do that, they're gonna know you're there.
Right.
But if you have time before they actually get near you, you shoot a little hole out of 2 or 3 bullets in the wall, it's not enough to actually break any of the wall panels, and because you're not hitting it, it doesn't make that like brighter like circle around the hit hole. And while it's smaller, it's so much harder to spot, and you'll more likely get a kill on that.
Okay.
In terms of like longer angles to open, yeah, it just comes down to like experimenting and map knowledge. Like Clubhouse, for example, if you're holding church, bottom floor, one good long angle you can hold is you open up holes at the back of Arsenal towards like the main hallway, and you can actually hold like the drop into Moto from there, and like Church Hall, where they often try and get as like a thermite breach, you can hold that from there as well. That's a good one to open late, because they'll like drone it out and they'll see that the hallway's clear and that there's no holes, and they're like, cool, let's push down and open Church Wall with thermite. But if you're playing at the back of Arsenal with a shotgun, you can quickly just open a couple of holes, and like it works really well for you. And yeah, there's a lot of different good motor holes, like long angles you can open. But yeah, it comes down to just experimenting what works, when it works. Sometimes if you open them early, they might get used against you. So sometimes it's really good to like open them late. Yeah. Anything else, guys?
Nothing else from me.
All right. Well, that's pretty much it. If you guys have any other questions, everything. What I always say to my clients is like, you can just message me anytime on Discord. I'm happy to always answer questions over Discord. Likewise, if you clip a round and something happened, or like you just want some advice on what happened in that round, feel free just to quickly send me a clip. Like, obviously not like a whole game, but like a round here and there is fine. I always try and get back to people and answer any questions you have. And then if you want another session, feel free. Hit me up on Fiverr, and if you want me to help, like maybe if you want to do another session and we just purely go through like strategies, or like go through different maps that you want to learn some new stuff on. So like if you're playing lots of ranked and you keep getting cafe and border, or I don't know, whatever, and you want to learn more angles or like strategies for those maps, like I'm more than happy to run you guys through different things. Pretty open. But yeah, you can always message me on Discord. If I'm busy, I'll just get back to you whenever I'm not. We're about to go into a bit of a mid-season break for a little bit, so I'll have a bit more time on my hands anyway. Other than that, been good.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for your time.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah.
Learning your knowledge.
No worries at all. I really enjoy it. I could talk about Siege for 10 hours a day, I reckon. But
Here's a question for you actually. Is like, at what point did you kind of feel like you rounded the corner in terms of like, oh wow, I really get the game. I'm really good now. Was there a moment, or is it just kind of a gradual climb?
probably gradual. Like, I don't know if you peeked my stats, but like I have a pretty bad KD for someone that's pro. That's because for a long time I was pretty bad at the game. So I'm pretty stuck in a negative KD in ranks, and like it often gets pointed out a lot. I actually don't play much ranked anymore, but I hate playing. I actually have a Smurf account I play on, but not because I want to play with low levels, just because the attention that I get on my main is just so annoying, and especially because like know my name and know I'm pro, and they see my stats, they're just like, "Oh, you're a boosted pro, 0.9 KD, you suck." Yeah, like it's gradual. I don't think many pros kind of like just started pro. I think a lot of them kind of grew. Some people are just naturally gifted at the game.
Right.
But yeah, for me, it was definitely not one thing. Like I reckon I played competitively for like a solid year before I really started to notice I was getting really good at the game. Even though I was playing competitively, like with Challenger League and stuff at that time, I never felt like I was super good. But then, I don't know, like it's just one day something clicked. I felt like I was much better at the game, and then we made Pro League, and like our first game of Pro League as a team was against Fnatic, and I dropped like 17 kills or something, and I just like I don't know. I was like, after that game, I was like, shit, man, like where the fuck did this come from? Yeah, like it just kind of it creeps up sometimes, but it all comes down to like what you put in. Like eventually you'll get out what you put in. It feels like a big grind for a long time for some people. I often feel because of my age compared to other pros, I think I had to grind a bit longer or harder. It definitely helps being younger because this game is a lot to do with reaction time. And generally younger people just learn stuff a bit quicker because their brain's still kind of spongy.
Right.
Yeah, generally it favors younger people, but
Absolutely.
yeah, if you grind, you'll improve.
Yeah, because I'm actually 44.
Oh, okay.
And so so you know, we were playing. And I'm like, dude, these like young bucks are just like, I used to be good at these games. You know, I used to like, you know, be like really solid at Rainbow Six. And it was really basic, but still like the gun skills were there. And so then, you know, I'm like, it's just because I'm slowing down. I mean, obviously, partly that's it. And I, you know, actually went on like Human Benchmark just to see what my reaction speed was. You know, it's like, you know, like I'm actually like average or above average for, you know, a regular gamer. So I think a lot of it. But if you look at my kill cam, it's like, dude, you know, it feels like fast when I'm doing it, but I'm like, dude, you're staring at the guy for a good like half second. It's a miracle you weren't shot in the face, you know. And so I think it's like what you're saying is like that perception. It's not just the reaction speed; it's that perception, and I'm hoping it comes with experience. You know, like you say, visualization and being able to react because you already, you know, your brain's already wired to respond and expect, you know. And so, yeah, I mean, it seems like it's gotten better lately, but that's kind of sort of like where things are.
Yeah, you'll find you'll generally have to grind a little more. Some people, that's just what I found compared to like most of my teammates throughout the years. Like most of them are all younger than me. I've always been with younger people. Yeah. And they kind of just, I don't know, they didn't have to work as hard. That's what it always seemed like. They didn't have to work as hard. Yeah. And that's half the reason I ended up going into coach role instead of sticking as a player, because I was having to put in like a lot of hours to like maintain and improve to the level that I needed to be. Right. And for me, that wasn't really working out, mainly because in Australia, at least, esports is not that profitable. Like if I lived in North America, I probably could have stayed as a player. I would have made a pretty good living, but unfortunately, yeah, in Australia, it's not as well funded. So that's why I decided to be a coach instead, because I could put less time in, but still be really involved, still impart my knowledge and still be up with the game. And like I still play it quite a lot, but it's not the same.
Cool, yeah. So I mean, would you say like, so I think Stanley and I are at maybe like 140, 160 hours, which I mean that's still pretty new, you would say, right? Like I mean, I've seen like, you know, the hours at like the pros rack up, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, like I'm up to, here we go, I've got Steam open. 6,730 hours on Steam.
Oh my god.
And like compared to some others, like I know Pengu has like 12,000 hours or something.
Yeah.
Like
actual hours, not just because Steam is on or whatever.
Yeah. So like
ridiculous.
It's a big indicator. Like it really just comes down to like if you put in the hours, like you probably will become really good at the game. Like it kind of makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it comes down to experience. Like the good thing about when you put in those hours, and the biggest difference between the average player and a pro player comes down to just like the map knowledge and experience. Like once you learn every map by heart, like every call out, every angle, all that kind of stuff, the game is different. Like you can strategically think about things so differently, and you don't get outplayed as much, you just get outgunned. That's it's different.
Here's a question for you. Who like, what is a notable player that like who's like the worst pro player gun skill wise, but is still very effective? Is that a thing?
Yeah. People often regard Fabian from G2 as like he's a really good player, but he hasn't got like the sharpest aim. His aim's like it's still good. Like he's obviously a pro player. Yeah, but like his strength lies in his like smarts and like strategy. He's the main G2. A lot of his calls and leadership is really good, and he just thinks about the game in a really smart way. I think he's definitely the best example of someone that doesn't have the best aim, but is still a very good player. Yeah. The one thing that frustrates me is when there's a few players that have like insane aim, like they're like mechanically gifted, but like they do the dumbest shit. And it's like, man, if you just like learnt the game kind of properly and like tried to be smart, you'd be like a god.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like for me that's kind of like Bolo. Like Bolo's aim is like really good
That's
in
ridiculous.
like
Yeah.
ranked
I don't even
matches.
understand how like anyone
But-
can move.
Yeah.
But he doesn't rack up the kills in Pro League as much
Yeah,
as he does with all the videos that he put out.
100%. He's still pretty fresh to Pro League though, and like
Yeah.
if he learns properly, which I think he will, because like Pojo is a really good coach and really mature. I think if Bolo is nurtured properly, I think maybe in like a year he's probably going to be like a really good pro player. The best example I have of a pro player I think that is really pretty good mechanically, but not like overly smart. Skies from Reciprocity.
Yeah.
Yeah, I find his aim is quite good, and like he's often known for like being nutty, but like the amount of just like silly shit that I see him do, it's like, man, like if you just thought more or something, I don't know.
But Skies has some pretty insane clutches.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
like I think he just thrives on pressure, and his aims is good.
Yeah.
But like I was watching their game against TSM the other day, and like twice he did this like run out early round as smoke with the SMG11.
I watched that.
You watched that?
Yeah, both times. Yeah.
Yeah,
he got
and like
canned both times.
the
Within,
first time
like,
it was
30 seconds.
already kind of dumb, but he did it again the second time when I expected it, and I'm just like, what are you doing, man? Like, you can't do that with smoke. Like, it doesn't make any sense. And then apparently, like Foxay said in the interview, like he reckons that hit reg was bad, but like, oh man, I don't think it was that.
So among the three of us here,
Uh-huh.
Skull tends to have the higher kill count between us three.
Oh, he's got
Sundown,
The best, he's got the best gun skills. Of all.
Yeah. Sundown usually is the roamer by nature, and I'm usually playing some sort of utility or anchor. How do I best enable these other two guys to perform better? Like, how do I best support them as a support player?
Intel is going to be your best strength then. So learn to be really good with drones and learn like the best way to use cameras on defense. So as I was saying before, like if you're an anchor player on defense, you want to go spawn cams first, figure out where they've spawned. Sometimes you'll just see all the spawn cams die like straight away. That just means they've spawned everywhere. And then you'll want to just go to like what the next critical cams are. So let's use Clubhouse as a good example. If you see the kennels camera get shot as well as the construction camera, you can kind of figure out, okay, there's spawned kennels and construction. You then might go on garage camera so you can see if the kennels players start to push through garage, which is really common. That's probably your best bet. Otherwise, you can go on bar, because then the construction guys might come in through like the kitchen and come into bar. So then you can kind of get a feel for like where they're pushing. And let's say if Sundown's roaming up in master bedroom or like construction cache area, both of those are really critical. Like if they've pushed into bar and they've pushed bar, he might try to push down the main stairs and get a kill. Or if you say they've pushed garage, he might either try and kill them on entry at garage, or he might like fuck with them a bit and get them to start hunting him upstairs. And then in that case, he might go on bar cam. You could say, your bar's clear, dude. No one's in bar. So he could fuck with them for a bit in cache, garage, and then he could just rotate down main and either go through bar and reflank, or he can come down to site, for example. And none of that would be at all possible if you're not giving him like good intel. Yeah, so that's super key for an anchor player, is getting good early intel for roamers to do their thing. Because most good roamers can't be nutty and do their shit if they don't have the intel.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna bounce because I actually have a chiropractor appointment in 40 minutes. Speaking of being a little bit older, getting older. Yeah. Again, feel free to shoot me any messages on Discord. I appreciate the order on Fiverr, and if you guys want any other sessions, yeah, I'm always open. So just hit me up.
Yep.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks,
All right.
man.
Thank you, man.
Thank you for your time.
Cool. No worries at all. All right.
All
See you
right.
guys.
See ya.
Bye.
Later.
Okay.
That was
Because I was listening to okay, there are things that I am doing right, but of course there's also things that I can be working on or improving on. So that's helpful also.
I mean, it's kind of nice to hear him say like, "Oh, like I grinded my way up into pro league, so so it's possible still. It's still possible."
Oh
guys.
my